Okay, calling to order the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and Higher Education. This afternoon, we will hear from the University of Hawaii, who will present their biennial budget requests. Good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So good morning, Chair Kim, Chair Dela Cruz, Vice Chair Kadani, and Vice Chair Moriwaki, and all the members of the Senate Higher Education Committee and Ways and Means Committee. My name is Wendy Hensel, and I'm honored to serve as the new president of the University of Hawaii. Thank you so much for your opportunity today to review our budget request with you. It has only been just 2 weeks at this point that I've been sitting in this position, but I've been collaborating closely with UH leadership and also many of you. So thank you for the time that you've spent for the last several months. And I'm pleased to have here today with me from the Board of Regents, Gabe Lee and Lori Tachiki. From the System Office, Vice President for Budget and Finance, Calbert Young. Vice President for Administration, Jan Govea. Vice President for Academic Strategy, Deb Halbert. Vice President for Research and Innovation, Vasilis Sirmas. Vice President for Legal Affairs, Kerry Okanaga. Vice President for Information Technology, Garrett Yoshimi. Vice President for Community Colleges, Dara Teraoka. And the Director of the University's Institutional Research Office, Kara Plaman Wagoner. From the campuses, we also have with us today UH West Oahu Chancellor Manette Benham. UH Hilo Chancellor Bonnie Irwin couldn't be here today, but in her stead is UH Hilo Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance, Kale Raposa. UH Manoa Provost Michael Bruno. UH Manoa Acting Director, Athletic Director Lois Mannon. Leeward Community College Chancellor Carlos Peñaloza. UH Maui College Chancellor Louis Hokoana. Windward Chancellor Artis Eschenberg, and Chancellor for Hawaii Community College, Karen Lee. So as I shared with the House Finance Committee earlier this week, despite the short time that I've been here, I see amazing, truly transformative opportunities are in front of the University of Hawaii to shape a brighter future for this university, but also for our state as a whole. The university is committed to collaborating with you, with the community and other stakeholders to turn this vision into a reality. And of course, our budget request is foundational to that collaboration. Your support for our mission is essential and will make it a lasting impact. The UH operating budget reflects the robust public funding that we need to maintain an excellent system of public higher education. And thank you for your support. I have told many people how impressed I am with the level of support that comes from this body. In comparison to other states, it is truly at the top of the list, and I thank you for that. I urge you to consider the significant items detailed in the University of Hawaii's Board of Regents budget and the governor's budget request. And I will turn it over now to Vice President Calbert Young to briefly identify the specific items we'll be talking about today with you. Albert.
Thank you. Good afternoon, chairs.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to go through the individual items that are reflected in the University of Hawaii budget request. Also, as it compares to what was included in the governor's.
No, we're not doing that. We're only going to go over table 6.
Right. Okay.
So we don't.
In table 6.
Yeah.
So okay. So that is what's actually included in the governor's executive branch.
Yeah.
Within the, I'll go straight down table 6 then.
Yeah, by priority department. Yeah.
So starting at referring to table 6, starting with items that reflect current existing funding in the current fiscal year for the university that are non-recurring. Some of this funding is actually via various acts from recent years. So for example, for the first item, which is for UH Manoa related to athletic funding subsidy for $3.2 million. This is funding that actually currently exists and was appropriated to the legislature, appropriated by the legislature, but was identified as non-recurring. So the request is to make it recurring. And by the way, this is actually funding that has been appropriated for multiple previous years, but always as non-recurring. Similarly, so for
excuse me,
Oh,
since
yeah.
we're on athletics, on next page, the 17 priority is also Manoa Athletics. Can we take both of them up together since questions can then,
You have a
Ask the
question
questions.
on,
I'm gonna have a question
on number one.
Number one and number is, 17.
1717.
on second page. Already number 17. Asking for 4 positions?
Correct.
Is that, so is this is new money that you're asking for?
Yes, the item 17 reflected on table 6 is for new positions.
Yeah.
For $320,000.
So the 320 cannot be absorbed in the first ask?
The 320,000 represents new, not currently, doesn't currently
Yeah.
exist at the funding levels.
Yes. Can it be absorbed into the first ask? Because that's 3.2 million.
Yes, but the 3.2 million actually historically, when the legislature has appropriated this particular athletic funding, it was for rather specific purposes, not personnel. So it was nutrition, for example, travel, assisted travel, student athlete,
Yeah.
other services. So
But is the personnel related to all of those activities? I mean, they wouldn't be coordinating any of that?
I don't believe it's related, Senator.
To recruiting?
It would be if that were to happen, it would mean that there would be a reduction in the current services that are provided at athletics, which is funded by the 3.2 million. And again, it's actually nutrition, it's things that are actually paid for to student athletes for, like nutrition. It's not actually personnel.
Is any of these special funded positions now that you're asking for general funds?
Not this number 17 request. That is new positions that currently.
Okay, so
cannot
is there
exist.
any in this governor's budget? I know it's in your regular budget that you'd ask for converting 36 positions,
That was in the University Board of Regents, University.
but it's not something the governor approved.
That was not included in the governor's.
Okay, and you, accordingly, they're saying in the independent audit that was done in December, well, I don't know when it was done, but came out in the news in December that the athletic department incurred a $2.1 million deficit for fiscal year that ended on June 30th.
For their operating, unaudited for operating, right?
Okay, so how much do we actually, because we keep saying that football generates the funds to pay for a lot of the other activities. So if we're incurring deficits, how much have the football program actually generated in these last couple of years?
So I would like your indulgence to call Manoa. So whatever deficits are in any programs, including athletics, are covered overall, like by the campus. So how much that is and where the funding go, but the breakdown by individual sports,
Well, I don't want to break down individual sports. I just want to get a
football
sense,
makes versus-
because it's said that the reason why football is so important, and I agree, that they raise, and I thought they raised money to support all the others. But if they're having a deficit, then I'm not sure, that computes that
Right.
they're raising all this money to support the other programs. So can you
So
explain that?
I do believe it is true that that football generates the lion's share, the vast majority of lion's share related to support all of the athletic programs. I think it would be fair to say that for the amount of revenues that are generated by football and all the other parts of the athletic program at whole, it is usually not sufficient to that alone cover all of the expenses for athletics.
According to this, it says the report showed the football program earned more than 13 million in revenue with expenses of nearly 14 million for a net deficit of $636,000. So where is the money coming to support the football and all the other programs if that's the case?
Hi, good afternoon.
Can you speak into the mic?
And members, Lois Mann and Athletics Director, UH Manoa. I want to bring up Tiffany Kuroka, but the deficit can be related to several things. One of them is that since we moved back from Aloha Stadium to have football on campus because of the closure the annual loss that we had is $1.7 million a year in the football program. But also the deficit that you are referring to, Tiffany, this is Tiffany Kuroka, Assistant Athletics Director for Business Operations.
Yeah, so the deficit that you were referring to also includes 1.6 million of hazard pay that was accrued for our employees that had to be paid for relating to COVID.
Okay, I understand there's certain circumstances that would you would have to pay out and do more. I'm just trying to, how do we reconcile the fact that it's always said that football raises all of this money to pay for all of the other sports? But if there's a deficit, then I guess where is the support coming from? Where are you, how is this money being made up?
So, yes, we have had deficits and it's covered by the University of Manoa's funds.
What
Whenever we
fund?
have it.
What
Sometimes we
fund?
have, surpluses, sometimes we have deficits.
I'm sorry,
Sometimes we have surpluses. and
surpluses from where?
We might have a net income from, say, football is does better than we might have.
Fair.
Surplus.
Does it come from current expenses? Which account does the money come from?
So in consulting with Manoa Provost, so the additional funds is typically from campus funds, right? So that would mean highly likely tuition. So it's net revenues of the campus, which would be any revenues that are generated by the campus that are available for, that could flow or are fluid to various funds like athletics, special funds. So that would be tuition.
So what's the annual amount of deficit for the athletic department that comes out of tuition, or you can break it down if there's another pot of money that you're using? What amount of money is that?
It varies from year to year. So within the last, since 2018, we've had as high as 3.7 million deficit, and we've had a surplus of 1 million in 1 year. So every year is a little different depending on how it
So how do you
I'll
get a
let you-
surplus with a deficit? Can you?
I'm not sure I understand exactly, but in some years we do go away and play football games that offer large guarantees. Like 1 year we went to the University of Michigan and we got $1.9, I believe, $1 million from playing at Michigan. And in other years, we don't do that. We don't have-
Yeah, but that wouldn't be a surplus. That would be added, shouldn't you add to the whole thing and you would have a lesser deficit then?
It's factored into the deficit.
So I'm not sure when you talk about, you had a 3.7 million and yet you had a 1 million in surplus.
So each year it's a different amount, either, a surplus or a deficit.
Okay.
And in
So
the
what year did you have a surplus and no deficit?
Like 2023 and 2024.
Yeah, but the report is saying that in this year, you had a deficit.
Okay, so in 24, sorry, the numbers I'm talking about is department only, whereas the report that was reported includes UH Foundation. It's consolidated for NCAA purposes. That's a requirement by the NCAA to consolidate the foundation accounts. So
This is kind of confusing. Can you please come back to us and give us a breakdown of the deficits and how the money, because in addition to these deficits, don't you have a running deficit for the department? What is that amount?
I think at this point, it's about, actually, it's probably zero right now. A few years ago, it was transferred to Manoa.
So it was about 8 million, right? Was the running deficit?
The accumulated deficit was actually higher. It
Mm-hmm.
was, I think, over 10 years, maybe. I think it was over 20 million.
Okay, so over 10 years, we had a $20 million deficit, running deficit.
Yeah.
up until when did it go over to? Manoa?
20, I think, in 23, I think they moved it in 23.
So in 23, they wiped you clean, and I don't know where that deficit ended up coming from, so maybe Provost can answer this, but then, so now you're accumulating more deficit. What is the total deficit?
So since
accumulation
that
now?
money has, since that was wiped out, then those 2 years after that, we've had surpluses. So right now it's a maybe $1.2 million surplus at this point.
Okay, I guess I'm having a hard time. How do you get a surplus if the football program raises the money and the football program having a deficit? So can you guys send that in, explain that to us? 'Cause that's troubling.
Yeah.
Unless somebody else has the answer. Bruno, you have the answer for that? Provost?
I can answer the question.
Here, Michael, you want to see?
With respect, Michael Bruno, Provost at UH Manoa, with respect to the deficit that was brought into the central Manoa budget, and that's been done over the years for other units as well. I recall the law school, we had to do that. And then there is essentially a payback program established where each year the unit comes back to Manoa and provides a payment over time. So that was the anticipation in that case as well, I'm told.
Okay, I'm sure the committee will go deeper into this.
How much does athletics still have to pay back to the campus?
This was done with maybe even before us, but I'm not sure what the dollar amount Sandy required.
Yeah, so the athletics department doesn't have to return any money to the university. Manoa is covering that deficit that was transferred.
No, but he said when they often cover other programs, there's usually a payment plan to go back to pay back the cover, whatever they covered.
I don't think that was this agreement for.
We can come back to you with that. Our CFO, the Manoa CFO is out today. She's been out this week, so we can come back to you on that.
Okay, I had a question on the hazard pay then. Which units are you covering with athletics?
All of the athletics employees that are special. fund-
Yeah, but which union are they with? Which
Oh,
unit?
the,
Which bargaining unit?
HCA unit.
Unit 8.
Yeah.
Is that covered?
Yeah, only the.
Only the general fund.
No, I'm talking about the hazard pay bill. Okay, because we passed a separate bill for hazard pay that we funded for all the units that were negotiated. So I'm surprised you're taking it out of athletics when we already passed a
Not
bill
fair.
to fund that.
Chair, so that bill was for HGEA units, including Unit 8, which is an HGEA unit. That's the unit that operates at UH. But the bill, as with all collective bargaining appropriation bills, you're appropriating and providing general funds. The general funds are only available to cover employees that their salaries are paid with general funds. In that collective bargaining bill, you're providing additional ceiling to the non-general funds, so special funds. And the way it works for the state in general, including at UH, is if whatever fund is paying for the salaries must pay for the fringe and the additional benefits. So not only for UH, but for all state departments, for hazard pay and with athletics, they are funded by, let's say, the athletic special fund. So if those employees are paid salaries via the athletic special fund, the athletic special fund must also pay for the fringe. If they are funded, if their salaries are paid with the tuition and fees special fund, then the tuition and fees special fund must pay the fringe.
Okay.
So this expense that Tiffany is referring to is for those employees that were funded in, via some other fund other than the general funds.
Okay, but earlier she asked that this 3.2 million would probably help cover some of that.
The 3.2 for operations, like team travel, guarantee, recruiting. So those are specifically for like.
Yeah, but when-
operations of the sports,
Yeah.
not any salaries or anything. We don't include any salaries or benefits in that 3.2 million.
But when you mentioned the deficit was caused, you said one of the things that helped cause it was the hazard pay.
0.6 million.
Yeah.
Was 1.6 million.
So none of this 3.2 is going to cover any of that.
No, that's strictly for operations of our sports that happen every year.
So how many employees is that?
About 110 employees. We have about 140 total and about 30, I think 28 are general funded. So the remaining
Are
100.
they all qualified for the hazard?
Not all, I would say the vast majority qualified, yeah.
It's only HGEA, Chair.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shell game though, right? Because the general fund is still subsidizing athletics.
Yes. Yeah, we have the 28 employees, as well as the 3.2 million, which is used for operations. But we spend more than the 3.2 for operations. So,
Okay.
sure.
I guess the question that I have is, I was told, the person that told me this is no longer there, but I was told that the deficit is going to continue to get higher because unless we do something. So I think because the person that's no longer there, I'm talking about former athletic director is no longer there. I think we need to understand what is the strategy to get the deficit under control. I think you proposed some things, the governor didn't obviously agree, but I think we need to know if the new administration coming in, especially the new president, are we going to get this deficit under control? Because as I think, our higher ed chair brought up the good point is it's confusing. Like we kind of need to know that, is it going to increase or is it not? Or especially because it's your number one priority, do we have a plan going forward? Because that's what I asked. I said, well, what's the plan? At the time there was a plan, but we don't know what the plan is at this juncture, right?
Thank you for your question. We are currently trying to figure out the settlement of I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the house settlement in the NCAA, where it's a land breaking settlement that's going to cost $2.8 billion over the next 10 years to pay back student athletes for name, image, and likeness losses dating back to 2016 to current. And then that's what they're calling back pay, and that to the University of Hawaii, that amounts to about $500,000 in money that we could not plan for, additional money. And then there's the house settlement also allows us to do something that we call revenue sharing. So revenue sharing from the broadcast, the media rights, and things like that, that is going to cost upwards of $4 million to share with our student athletes because of the settlement. So those are new costs. As far as strategy, we are trying different angles. We're going to try and raise money for name, image, and likeness. And we're also trying to fundraise, which is almost the same thing, but kind of not. But we're also trying to figure out scholarships that we don't have to, but we can maximize scholarships. So one of the things that came out of the house settlement was the scholarships can be unlimited now, where roster sizes before could be unlimited. A football team could have 200 people on their 200 players on their team, and now they are not able to. They're capped at 120. But their scholarships were 85. So now they can go up to 180, I'm sorry, the new cap is 105. The new roster size is 105. And so they can go up to 105 from 85. And that's happening across all sports. So where there is a roster limit now, but no scholarship limit.
So when do you think you're going to have a plan, a documented plan that we can review?
I think the plan is in motion right now, but there's a lot of changing things something just came out yesterday from the NCAA or from the Office of Civil Rights telling us how we need to administer the revenue sharing as it relates to Title IX, where
Yeah.
that did not come out until just yesterday. So we now know how we can raise money and how we need to administer it. Whereas before there was talk about how 90% needs to go to football and the other 10% for
Yeah.
the other sports.
But are there non-traditional ways that you could look at too to help?
Yes. Yes, so we're going to the business community and we're asking for help there. We can look at working with the campus leadership on scholarships and how we administer the scholarships, whether it's through WUI or through tuition waivers and special talent waivers and.
But
things
this
like
is
that.
just you talking out loud, or you actually have a plan?
Oh, that we've been working on a plan
Oh, so there's no,
For-
you're working on a plan, or is there a plan?
for scholarships. There's
No, I'm
always. a
talking
plan for
about what
scholarships.
Senator Hashimoto talked about.
Yeah.
Making sure that the deficit no longer, how do you extinguish that? What's the timeline and the plan so that that's not,
Well, we need to
Increase.
manage our expenses, so we can't go full scholarships if we
I-
don't have the money to go full
Yeah, so
scholarships. So we're
is
trying to
that-
measure that.
are those details in a document of how you're going to achieve this?
Not at the moment, no. It's a work in progress right now because we're waiting for more
Is there a
information.
deadline to develop something
July 1st is the deadline because that's when the House settlement comes into.
for your overall plan on the extinguishing?
I would like to have it before that, but July 1st is when, if the judge approves the settlement in April, July 1st would be the enactment date of all of this.
Yeah, but that also includes what you talked about in regards to working with the business community and.
That's happening now. We're having discussions now.
But
Okay.
isn't that just like a one-time thing? I mean, and these are to the students, but that doesn't necessarily address all of your expenses, right? Because,
So the new expenses are the House settlement expenses in order for us to remain competitive across the board, with cost of attendance and Alston as well as the back pay and the revenue share.
right, but you don't have those expenses now and you have a deficit. So you're going to get additional things that are going to continue to.
Correct. So we're gonna have to manage our
Deficit.
spending depending on how much money we have.
Okay, maybe you should come back with a much more detailed plan before the Senate gets the budget from the House, so that we can review this 3.2 million again.
We'll be happy to do that.
Is this something that the Board of Regents has addressed at all? Questioned at all?
I have not had any direct conversations about the Board of Regents with it, but we have had, I've talked to Chair Lee about some of the issues that we're facing. And we're trying that, and he's helping us in the business community as well. But we can definitely put together a plan and come.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I watch the hearings and stuff, and I don't hear the Board of Regents bringing up these issues and trying to be proactive. It shouldn't reach us at some point. It should be dealt with the Board of Regents and then bound to the administration.
I can just add,
Sure.
this is moving so quickly nationally. Every college in the country is having this conversation, particularly colleges that are in Division I, but not at the top of Division I. It is an extraordinarily challenging time with moving parts in the mosaic of finances and expenses and costs. And we actually have had several conversations already about this. I understand the desire to have more certainty, and we certainly will take that back and work, but I do want to commend the department. It's already been brought to my attention and we are already working on this. So we will come back to you with a more complete plan that answers your responses.
So with the contribution you're going to ask the business community, where is the foundation in this picture as well?
So the foundation is working towards, we're trying to figure out a structure for NIL right now. So once we figure out a structure and what structure best fits the University of Hawaii at Manoa, then we can figure out how the foundation plays into it. But we also.
So they're part of the.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think in just hearing your plan though, what concerns me is nowhere was the strategy of converting all those positions to G-funded positions that the governor didn't fund. I thought in my mind that when I was told about the plan, it was in theory that was supposed to be a big part of the plan. So, but if that doesn't happen, I don't know if any of this is going to really work out, because I was told a lot of it is, wages increasing, but in your conversation just now, there was nothing about that. So, maybe there was not enough justification for the governor to approve it. I don't know, but in here, we didn't hear anything about it. So I think that also needs to be a part of the overall picture.
Absolutely.
I think they'll also, President, I understand what you're saying, but the overall picture is whether or not, you know, Hawaii needs to continue to look at being a D1 football program, or are we looking at something else, or whatever. I mean, those are the conversations. It's not an easy conversation. It's one
Right.
that's been battered around the community, but is that something, are you going to looking at the whole picture and then come back to us? Because it really needs to have, and that's a conversation that the regents need to have, and I'm surprised that they haven't.
I can't speak to whether they've had that conversation. I can say what you have just articulated is exactly correct. There's obviously a significant public investment in sports in this state. And the University of Hawaii is the sports program of the state with no professional sports team. And if there is an absence of state investment in that, it will be increasingly difficult under these new circumstances with the NCAA to continue to function at a level of excellence that's necessary in order to be part of, for example, the Mountain West Conference, who expects a certain level of investment in order to justify our participation in the conference. So absolutely correct. It's, I think, as I said, every program pretty much around the country is dealing with this, and we're talking to all of our peers about what strategies they have, how they're approaching this, and we will have a plan. We have to have a plan.
Thank you.
Just this question on recurring. On the recurring request for the athletic program, does that include Hilo campus
No,
as well?
Lorraine, that's the next slide.
That's
the
not,
next
oh,
slide.
okay.
Okay, why don't we move on to the,
Just get one quick question. So with all of this trials and tribulations we're having with athletics, you guys are still continuing to think to bail out and put some more money into the stadium at the University of Hawaii Manoa?
Want to answer you?
We are planning to continue to put in what is required to minimally maintain the current Ching Stadium complex to be the place for UH football. That being said, though, our plan A priority is we support the state's effort to construct the NASED project, Aloha Stadium in Hawai'i. So that, as the case, we really are trying to just afford and maintain the current stadium on a temporary basis, because we are anticipating that a Aloha Stadium project would be the longer term solution.
The reason why it bothers me is with that whole stadium was supposed to be a temporary stadium. Then we put permanent in, temporary, permanent, putting structures in there that, of course, again, I only bring up the fact that once somebody that was working there their life, that was supposed to be a temporary one. University should have a better plan and worrying about Aloha Stadium and worrying about Aloha Stadium being built 300, 400 million. We're still waiting. Or you can have you guys have a lot of land on West Oahu. You guys are so condensed over here in Manoa. You guys still try to piecemeal things there. Then you guys grumbling you get more money and revenue. But if you guys don't have an open site, build something big enough that you guys can hold the capacity of what you try to say to piecemeal what you guys need to make money over there, because we keep dumping money into there as a temporary structure.
okay, why don't we wait till we see their plan in a couple months and we can go over their overall plan on how they're going to finance athletics. Because if not, we're going to get sidetracked and we have quite a bit of budget items to go through.
I just had one last comment, Mr. Chair. So as we're talking about the athletics and the future and the plan, we're doing so without even an athletic director. So that's something of big concern. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Hilo Athletics.
Item number 2 on table 6. So similarly to the discussion we just had regarding UH Manoa Athletics, there's a request included in the governor's budget for $500,000 specifically for subsidy to UH Hilo Athletics. Same as what I stated for UH Manoa. This is funding that currently is actually in the present budget. It's non-recurring. It's an amount to UH Hilo for UH Hilo Athletics. However, on this one, I would like to point out that the amount that's included in the governor's request, $500,000, is actually less than what is the current subsidy and the amount.
No, we can see that for ourselves. You don't have to point that out.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 3.
This is related to Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology, HIMB. It's to it's to make permanent what is funded and requested in Act 181 from 2023. This does include positions, 3 positions to be put in to make permanent. Again, these are items that already exist, including the positions currently.
So these are live bodies.
I believe they are live bodies, yes.
Okay. This is special project so far.
Well, this came via an
The bill.
appropriation bill. Yeah, so
Okay.
this is just to go
Okay.
through the course of asking for it to be put into the permanent budget.
And they're all filled.
Yes. So
Okay. Number 4.
similar to what we just discussed related to the Pamantasan Council. For item 4 and 5, there's this was appropriation currently existing, but came via appropriation bill. There are positions. This is a program that is throughout the university system at community colleges and at Manoa. So it's positions and funding that currently exists, but again, to make it recurring in the budget. For item 6, this is funding for the BA in Education Studies program at Hilo, and it's to provide funding that would make the current level of funding in the program on a full-time basis. For item 7, the funding for mental health technician certificate competence program at Windward Community College. Again, this was provided initially for via an Act 107 in 2024, so last year. So this again is just to continue the program as permanent. And then item 8.
Well, how many students have gone through? Oh, can you come forward?
We've had
State
83.
your name. No, just state your name.
Aloha, I'm Artis Eschenberg. I'm the chancellor at Windward Community College. We've had 83 graduates to date over the past 2 years. We have about a 75% completion rate for those in cohorts. And this fall, we graduated a cohort of police officers as well as a cohort of corrections officers to help serve in those capacities with those skills.
Right.
So once they graduate, where are they placed, or do you have internships so they're placed in the state?
So we work with initially the program was developed with the Hawai'i State Hospital, which is the second largest employer on our side. And it results in them being able to move a step up in their pay at the state hospital. And
Existing positions.
those were existing positions, yes. And they had the last time I looked, they had over 100 empty positions for mental health tech. So we're also helping to provide for those positions where they would be qualified. And we've worked with other agencies as well, like the police and Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
So do you recruit new students so that they can actually add staffing so that we can reduce the vacancies?
Yes, we do. And we also work with Altra's staffing because we were having a hard time based on the timing of when positions opened for the state hospital. So now we're also working with the staffing company that they use for their temporary positions. They get temporary position experience and then can apply when the positions themselves become open.
So how many classes graduate a year?
Because it's based on courses, they're not only cohorts, they're accepted on a rotating basis and they can take the courses in separate. So we've graduated 83 students. Within that, we had 4 specific cohort programs. The cohorts graduate at a higher percentage than the students who just come in randomly because they have that peer support. So we're working to grow more cohort programs.
Any participation with the neighbor islands?
That's what we hope to do through these positions, is to grow and serve more facilities and agencies on the neighbor islands so that we grow this capacity statewide.
And the preference is at least there's a health facility around the hospitals. Close.
Yes, we've also worked with places like transition homes like Hinamauka to help, and I'm meeting with them in the next few weeks as well to look at it. So just need someone other than me and a part of a counselor to help steward the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 8.
Okay, number 8 is the last item related to existing funding. It's related to Act 74, which was passed in 2023, provide funding for the Practical Nursing Bridge Program at Maui College. So the amount 330,000 would make that funding sustainable for the existing program. Number 9 is for new positions for enrollment management, but specifically in the area of providing financial aid counselors at Manoa for 6 positions, expected half FTE filled in the first year, running up to full FTE in the second year, total running rate at about 398,000. Similarly, at West Oahu.
Sorry. Wait, that's number 9.
Right, number
9 and 10.
9 and 10.
You can ask both of them in the last question.
Okay,
No.
10.
Yeah, well, let me explain 10 then first. Yeah.
Number 10, you want to talk about number 10 and then we
Yeah.
can.
Number 10 is for admissions and financial support. So this is a position at West Oahu. Again, expected to be half FTE across the initial year, but the full run rate at 75,000 in the second year.
I have some concerns that the enrollment, especially in West Oahu, 5 years in a row of decline. And that the program that the university had projected a 6% increase continually. And so they're far below that. And right now, West Oahu has less students than Campbell High School. And it continued for 5 years in a row to decline. So I'm just wondering as to how are you justifying adding more positions? In addition, the university have spent what, 6 million? 6 million in the EAB contract, 2.6 million 5-year contract in 2020, another 4.1 million in this year, 2024, to increase the enrollment across the board. So it's troubling that you're, spending all that money. Can you explain what we've gotten out of those contracts? Have you given students scholarships out of that $6 million that we spent on a contractor to increase enrollment? We would have increased enrollment, right? Pure scholarships.
Aloha, I'm Annette Benham. I'm the chancellor at West Oahu. I'll try to answer your questions. When we had the EAB contract, which was just to help us to automate our enrollment recruitment process, we did actually reach over 3,000, our banner year in 2019 and into 2020. When COVID hit, of course, we began to decline. But beginning in 2022, we have slowly been increasing. Our count as of spring 2025. So in the fall of 2024, our count was 2,814. In the fall, we graduated 230 students, and our count as of this week is 2,818 students. We do have an enrollment management plan in place. It is now on our website, and we are slowly increasing across all of the different pools that we've been working on, from transfer students. So 2 out of 3 of our students are transfer students from our community colleges, and that's beginning to increase. We're slowly increasing our intake from our regional high schools, although right now their college going rate is very low. And so they're working harder to get their college rate going up. Returning adults are going up as well.
Chancellor, that sounds really good, but the numbers speak for itself. And you said in 2022, you had 2,913. 2023, it dropped to 2,863. 2024, it dropped again, 2,814. And you're saying now you're currently at 2,818.
Yes.
So it's not going up, it's certainly decreasing. And when we asked about the EAB contract before, it didn't say just to automate your program, but they were supposed to reach out and help you increase and bring in more enrollment. So we spent $2.7 million, and we didn't get any long-term increases. What
It
did
was for that period of time of 2018 to 2020, 2021.
but they're supposed to put in long-term so that you can continue to get it. It's not just that initial year that
We
you're
only
gonna
had
increase it.
we only had the very beginning of the EAB contract. We weren't able to continue it so that we could actually institutionalize it. Since that time, we've done everything manually.
Okay, so an EAB contract that we spent 2.7 million is not supposed to be just for 1 year. I mean, you bring the contractor in, you learn from them, you get all the
Yes.
whatever it is that they put together, and then you as the entity, supposed to use that knowledge to sustain you, because we're not going to pay 2.7 million every year to you to continue this contract, although we're paying
Right.
$4.6 million as of this year for another 2 years.
We no longer have EAB.
No, but Manoa does, right? Yes, as of 7/1/24 to 8/31/26, $4.1 million. $4.1 million. How many scholarships and students could we have subsidized and brought in?
Shall I answer for Manoa? So Manoa's experience is quite positive with EAB. We have 3,000 more students on the Manoa campus than we had 5 years ago. 3,000 students times, call it $10,000 in tuition, more than makes up.
Okay, so
Yes.
in fall of 2021, you had approximately 9,098 students. Fall of 2022, you had 9,074 students. In fall of 2023, that went up by about 200 students, 19,000.
Are you sure you're looking at the Manoa?
I'm sorry,
numbers?
19, not 9, 19,098 in 21, 19,074 in 22. Fall of 23, 19,240. And fall of 2024, you finally hit 20,000, which is what you had back in fall of 2013.
Right. That's right.
So of 2013, you had 20,006 students. And so you increased that this year by 6 students from your high.
Yes, that's a record incoming class for the 3rd year in a row. So this is success. I'm not saying this is going back 12 or 13 years ago when we were last at this level, but it's not that long ago we were at 17,000 students. So that's what I'm saying. In that increment of
Yeah, if
time.
you're spending that kind of money, what's the return on investment? Because then you get West Oahu, that's a decline. And every time we've gone to West Oahu, nobody's there on campus. It's like a ghost town.
I can provide a little bit of national context. This technology is used across the country. And it's not, I mean, I'm super pleased that we're continuing to grow, but it's also worth asking the question of what we would have lost if we didn't have it. When it's done manually, that means you have to reach out and touch every single person by hand. The ability to do that at scale is almost impossible, and certainly impossible when you're competing against other universities that have the technology to be able to reach automatically thousands, if not tens of thousands of people with the marketing, with the customer relation management. You know, when I was at UH West Oahu and found out that they're doing it by hand, and that in itself is a huge limitation on their ability to move the enrollment forward. So I understand we're talking specifically about what's happening on these campuses, but do want to say that technology is infiltrated throughout all of higher education and has been proven in many places to be a game changer in terms of allowing numbers to grow in a time when they're otherwise shrinking as a demographic
But aren't they
decline.
shrinking across the country, enrollment as a whole? Shrinking across
The number of 18-year-olds is declining. And so the question is, what are we doing to do the workforce programs and meet the different needs and create the access points with the online programs, for example, that is quite a highlight and a good one at UH West Oahu. I understand the concern about making sure we have robust on-campus engagement, but the working adults are the ones who are unable to say, I will be at a Monday and Wednesday class every day at 11 o'clock or, twice a week. And so having this option of online programs not only allows us to continue to grow that enrollment where the growth is, because it's not an 18-year-olds, but also should then connect into other islands where these specialties are not currently being offered. So that the strategy is sound, I think, from my perspective. There are many additional pieces we can do to be more effective, but the use of technology is truly essential in order to even begin to compete with other universities that are in our backyard with these students.
I agree that online is certainly very important, but what's troubling is if we're investing in bricks and mortar, and we invested a lot of money in bricks and mortar at West Oahu. We've got a brand new science building there that every time we visit, there's no classes being held. Things are locked up. And so if we're going to go online, then we shouldn't be investing and putting all this money into bricks and mortars. And if we have brick and mortar, then we should be sharing it, because then we're renting. We have a whole list of places that UH is leasing property. Why are we leasing when we have empty buildings within our campuses? So again, this is a broader picture that we need to address.
Those are very good questions, and we should be looking at those. And I believe we are looking at those questions. But I would just say it's not an either or, it's a both and. We need both robust on-campus programs as well as robust online programs to really be the access institution and fulfill our mission in that way to be the higher education system for the state. So I know that Chancellor Benham is looking at strategies to increase the in-person enrollment at the same time and trying to make those adjustments, and something we've agreed that we're going to work on closely this year.
Okay, one last question. So I'm looking at this projected trends in enrollment, University of Hawaii West Oahu, that was done by the Institutional Research Analysis Planning Office at the University of Hawaii. I'm not sure who heads this up, but this had a whole projection that West Oahu was going to grow by 6.6% immensely. It says enrollment to forecast to increase 0.7% in the fall of 2021 to reach 3,189, to continue to increase at an annual rate of 0.6% to fall 2026. We haven't even increased, we've declined. So I'm not sure who comes up with these forecasts. I mean, I don't know what.
I'm trying to remember when that report was actually done.
November of
Is there a date?
2020. November of
November
2020.
2020. Yeah, that's, I do remember that report, and it was our trajectory prior to COVID. So if in the fall of 2020 was one of our banner years at over 3,000 students. And then when COVID hit, we began, as many of our campuses had also been hit by students not coming back.
But I would
and
think they
slowly
would
into
redo
recovery.
this report.
Excuse me?
I would think that they would redo this report at some point. So who's in charge of, who is this? Institutional research. Hi.
So institutional research is, I've been the director there now, Ms. Carol Conway, since June of last year. So for my time, we had analysts working on that.
So did you see this report at any given time?
I have to go back. Yes.
So you haven't looked at it or even realized that it should be updated, or this is
I should
outdated?
take a look.
Okay, thank you.
Through it, and we can update it too.
Thank you.
I'll just just to provide some context, which hopefully is helpful nationally. The sector that has suffered the most post-COVID are the regionals, the four-year regional institutions. You know, we saw community colleges across the country tank during COVID. The regionals went down to the community colleges have gone back up. The regionals have not been able to recover at the same rate, in part because I think it's figuring out what that mission is in between the R1s and the 2-year colleges. So the kind of report that you have there, it's critical that we redo that as part of our strategy and frankly, and then also look at the emerging trends in terms of workforce development, which with the advent of AI, which wasn't even on the agenda in terms of generative AI in 2020, it probably isn't worth much of the paper it's written on at this point. So that is definitely my objective, to get these reports current and take a look.
Thank you for that, because West Oahu was supposed to be the shining star in that area. That's the fastest growing area of the island, the population, the students, all of that. You know, we're busting at the seams at Campbell High School. And so for all of that going on, to see the kind of decline, COVID or not COVID, I mean, we've been out of it, you know, it's really troubling for that. Sorry.
I would like to go back to your EAB contract and what it's comprised of. What does it do?
But I think Manoa has the EAB. We no longer have.
I want to know, what does it consist of? Because if you had the EAB contract, it would be the same.
Yeah, our EAB contract was to set it up, to set everything up.
So what was the scope of it? What was it supposed to do?
What it was supposed to do was to increase our recruitment of high school students into our campus, not only across the islands, but on the continent.
But was it through technology or through actual people going out there?
It was through automated technology. So our first couple of years really was assessment and setting everything up, but we had to stop our contract. So we didn't have the benefit of getting the automated system in place. So we had to take over what they had done and do it manually.
So I'm asking then, Manoa, you have a system-wide IT person and program. Why isn't there more consolidation and cooperation, that you're having each campus having a contract, 4 million, 2 million? What are you doing to consolidate
I agree with you
that?
more. This is an area where I think the University of Hawaii has not maximized its impact or efficiency. We should be able to, this would be part of a baseline standard of care that every single institution on our campus should have. Because it literally, as I said, is the difference between growing enrollment or doing it by hand, which is really an unacceptable place to be. One of the conversations that I'm already having with Vice President, how do we, Yoshimi, I did know that. I know everybody's name at this point. Is to consolidate the technology at the system level so that we can buy it at scale for a lower price and negotiate lower contract costs and ensure that we have a consistent level of access across the institutions. This is, in my mind, maybe one of the biggest opportunities we have right now to really increase our effectiveness and lower costs at the same time. I'll add one other thing. To date, the only use of saying it's EAB is a bit misleading, because there are multiple components that are part of EAB Navigate, and most of them have not been implemented anywhere across the University of Hawaii system. It is possible to get to the point, and we will be looking at this, to literally evaluate hundreds of data points on every day for every single student, so that as they begin to go off the path of success, an advisor is triggered to do the intervention at that moment. So, you know, when you talk about enrollment, you have to remember it's one thing to get them in. It's another thing to keep them there.
And I think this, but what we're looking at is you need to recruit students in. So that whole system approach, whether it be on the neighbor islands or Manoa or West Oahu, there should be one entry point, and that you should have data across the board so that you can bring them into the whole system.
Totally agree with you. That's
So,
correct.
I
And
mean,
that's
I'd
something
like to
I will be
see
working on this year.
a more
Absolutely.
consolidation and integration of
Yeah.
your campus on, especially if you have technology.
Absolutely.
So why would we have invested 2.7 million at West Oahu, don't continue it and now go on and put 4.1 million at Manoa and not even follow up with West Oahu? What's the thought process on that? Right? We give them something, we
Let
don't
them
fix
answer.
it. Yeah.
So because of the pressure that we got about having an EAB contract, we did stop the contract, but we didn't have the resources. Part of our payment to
But
EAB
pressure-
was actually paid by the UH system to help us to get it up, but we could not afford the entire amount.
Did you request it?
Pardon?
Did you request it?
We could not get the money that we
Did you
needed
request it?
from the system. We could not, we used all the money we could get for the
From-
EAB.
From the system.
Yeah, yeah, and you folks all pressured us too about EAB as well.
We didn't pressure, we questioned you on it.
Okay.
Just as we're questioning you now. So it's up to you to be able to make your justification of why it's needed.
Well, the provost said that it actually returns money. You know, you invest in it and you get more students and you get more tuition.
We did not have the resources to continue it.
But did you ask for it is a question? Because it didn't come back to us.
Okay, Senator Hashimoto.
So I guess the question, the overarching question, you know, when we're talking about enrollment, when we're talking about programmatic expansion, this goes on to the next budget item as well with the nursing program. I guess part of the issue at West Oahu is the flexibility and the focus on what's the emerging type of, you know, things that people want to do. And I think maybe this question is really for the president. Have you really looked at allowing the campuses to do what they need to do and to meet the workforce demands? Because I think the hard part about the last president, and I think he did a very, very good job, but the tendency was to be very Manoa-centric, right? Especially in this next line item with the nursing program. I'm finally glad that we're looking at expanding this nursing program, but it doesn't stop at West Oahu.
Right.
You know, I'm trying to push hard to get a nursing program at Maui, but it's been stopped time and time again from the system level. But when we take a look at how do we get people to enroll? It's the programs, right? And it's meeting community need, right? And so I think that feeds into what's the problem at West Oahu. But every campus is going to see that if we're not really strategic about the type of degrees that we're offering at each of the campuses.
Again, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. Here in week 2, I have already requested a system-wide assessment of how our degree programs map in with demand, where there is unmet need, where there is an emerging workforce area. Frankly, we need to be looking not at next year. Right now, we're looking behind, right? What we need to be looking is at 5-10 years out, anticipating where the growth is and leading into those programs so that we are preparing people in advance as they're coming online. So literally that study, I just spoke 2 days ago about having that commissioned. I did that in my last position and it resulted in a considerable increase in enrollment. So we cannot be effective if we are not in touch and leading, frankly, at a system, not at an individual campus level, but then offering opportunities at each of the campuses as those correspond to different opportunities.
And I get that, but I don't think we should wait for a study. I think like some of the campuses need to move on programs now, right? Like Maui College, they could implement that 4-year degree now, right? But they were just being held up by the system.
Part of the question is, where do you want to put resources in a system? If we are going to act as a system, then duplicating programs exactly, particularly in an online space, is going to be wasting resources, or at least let's say it's not going to be advancing because there's only so many people who will be matriculating. Those type of studies that I'm talking about take maybe 3 or 4 months. These are not long-term studies. And that allows us then at rather than waiting, the way a usual program develops, whether it's, it's not so much the technical degrees, but the other degrees, is at the faculty level grown up, which can take years to develop because of the number of, just the amount of time that takes. What I've experimented with and what I'm hoping to discuss with the campuses here is identifying through this market demand where the opportunities that are the big returns are, both for the workforce, but also for access,
And
then
I get it, yeah.
incentivizing that to get it up and running quickly.
Right. And I think the example, it took us years to make moves on nursing, but what is our acceptance
it
rate at
should
Manoa?
not- it should
It's
not be.
17% at Manoa for the BS degree. And we say there's not, we need to finally expand it. It took us years to do that. We should be opening up Maui next year at that 17% acceptance rate because we're sending all these people to Oahu, right? And our acceptance rate is 17%.
The problem with nursing programs, just so that we're all clear, is it is one of the most expensive programs to run, and it is limited by the number of clinical placements that we can put, and frankly, the number of nurses that will come in as faculty members. They make considerably more money as nurses than they do within our own, within the academy. And so it is a national struggle, the mismatch between the demand and the need and the placement. So in terms of that, I agree with you. I would not say it has to be at any particular campus. It's can we meet the demand wherever that demand sits. But it is a very expensive endeavor, and a little bit of time at the front end to make sure it's aligned with where the demand is will save us a lot of time and energy on the back end.
And I get it. And I think you have to look at the system. You have a lot of work to do, but I think those are like important examples. If we're going to see institutional success,
Agreed.
there's low-hanging fruit right
Yep.
there, right? And I look forward to your leadership. on
Any
that.
low-hanging fruit you see, let us know. We're excited to take advantage.
And I hope you're going to coordinate this with the Board of Regents because they approved the Atherton. And we said that you should put in a nursing facility there, long-term care, and nurses can go in, they would have places to go. And then we put in a innovation center with premium dorms. And these are the kinds of things that is just not going along into the future. So I hope part of your study is looking at what can we do away with? Like if we have colleges that enrollment is down 50% and there are workforce that is not really in demand, how do we replace them? Because we can't be all things to all people. We have to look at what are our demands and that of Hawaii and our Hawaii students. And part of that leadership has to come from the Board of Regents.
I think, again, that you're absolutely correct. It is impossible to be all things to all people. And we simply cannot continue to come with our hand out to ask for additional funding. We have to be good stewards by doing our own hard work about programs that are in demand and in decline, and in some places combining programs. Was speaking with the actually at UH West Oahu, where there are small programs that are not sustainable in a particular place. If we take a system approach, we should be able to combine those faculties, do a mix of hybrid and in-person and online, and maintain a broader array at a lower cost. So there's a lot of, I think, I'm convinced, opportunities here to reduce costs and actually increase service. So I agree with you. And for the record, the regents and I have discussed that I will come to them after I'm completed with the 10 campus visits that I'm doing and come with a plan for discussion with them that is much more concrete than this conversation we're having now.
Go ahead.
So have you been to UH West Oahu yet?
I have been twice this week.
Great.
Yes.
So their fall enrollment numbers have been declining for several years, and I'm not sure what steps have been taken to maintain or increase the enrollment, Chancellor Benham. But is there a plan, and can you share that plan with us, particularly because of the money that was spent for, the Academy of Creative Arts?
Yes, there is a plan in place. We've been working on it for the last 18 months. It is now posted on our website, and yesterday at the Board of Regents meeting, we actually provided all the regents a hard copy of that enrollment management plan. And basically what it has done is that it has pulled together faculty and staff to be working with different targeted groups for recruitment. And when we recruit them, then first year experience for our freshmen so that we can retain them to graduation. We also have a transfer focus. We have brought in a number of grants to use to help us to extend our transfer services to Kauai, where we now have a Kauai transfer agent right there on campus, and to Maui as well. We have one at LCC, and we work with Honolulu CC as well as with Windward CC. So we have transfer students, We have a group working on returning adults that continue in outreach, students as well. And so we are seeing an uptick in the number of applications that we're getting from across the board. But we do need to automate our services because right now we are doing it all really by hand. A lot of personal contact, which we know in our zip code, it's really important to have that personal relationship with our schools and our families. So we are up, we graduated 200 students in the fall, and our spring numbers are higher than our fall numbers in terms of enrollment. So we are getting more and more students into our
I'm looking forward to seeing that information. So those students that you graduate, how many have been able to find positions in?
Yes. Yes, we have that as well. We can tell you how many of our students have graduated. I don't have it right here, but yesterday at the Board of Regents meeting, we do have figures that show that 1 year out of graduation, about 79% of our students are full-time employed in the careers of their choice here in Hawaii, and that their median income is higher than the average, in early employment. So we do have a number of those numbers that we can share with you. We can put it all together and provide them. It's also online, our entire presentation with our numbers. So working really hard to get recover a lot of those numbers.
Thank you. I would appreciate that because I think that for a long time, the investment that we put in West Oahu and the ACM program that we were not aware, of what's going on and how many of the students are actually finding jobs.
The ACM program, just for you to know, it is the fourth largest program on our campus behind business, applied sciences, and social sciences. Right now, we have 334 students, majors in the ACM program. So it's very high.
I think that's number 16.
I'm sorry?
ACM is on number 16.
Okay.
So we'll probably have all these questions.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to bring up real quick since we're talking about enrollment and the role P20 and the Vice President of Academic Affairs should be playing in this. So I would just hand to you some documents that I got. This document I got in 2021 from the community colleges, and it shows the different IT pathways. Then the CIO Council, which includes UH, they gave me the second document in 2023. But it's only recently, when you look at P20's website, that now we actually have this outlined as to which high schools have cyber, where the internships are, where the jobs are. And it took so long to get to this point from 2021 to, 3 years just to get to this. And this is just one. And I'm really hoping that a lot of the career pathways are going to be this detailed so that parents can see line of sight.
Yep.
They know what high school they want to send their child to, if they want to get into cyber, which community college program, what the internship is. And this is just one. And the reason why I'm sharing with the others is that I'm hoping the others will be able to, the other programs are going to have something similar.
Yeah, I will just add, obviously, I'm just coming into this conversation, but one of the things that those different technologies I was referring can do is actually map this and allow someone to walk through it on their own access from the public.
Yeah.
So that we can connect very deliberately. You can't be what you can't see. And it's
Exactly.
often our fault that we make it so complex that the student knows some kind of what they want to do, but can't get there, see the path. This kind of transparency can be done.
Yeah, I feel like the student is stifled in trying to figure out, oh, where do I go? What classes? And duplicating and the schedule's not aligning. So we make it so difficult.
It is often us that is the problem. Yeah, I've often said we blame students for not succeeding. And the truth is, if we looked at ourselves as a bureaucracy and looked at what's hidden in the background that's precluding people from advancing and just remove those barriers, we would solve half the problem. So I'm very committed to that as part of my role here.
Because some of this actually should align with facilities, you know, so depending on the focuses of West Oahu, how does that might attract not all everyone, but people with those attracted to those specific programs.
Agreed.
I'm hoping that whoever the Vice President of Academic Affairs and the P20 can be a lot more aggressive in lining this all out.
The opportunity is extraordinary here, given that it's a single K through 12 system and a single higher ed system. And I think obviously some good work has been done, but it has not tapped its potential at this point. And I look forward to working with
and part of it is
DOE.
Because there's so much frustration or impatience with some of this. I know DBED started to hire their own workforce development coordinator to try to line it out because they had a hard time working with the systems that we have in place. So then now we have all this duplication.
Yeah, that's not good either.
Of programming, trying to figure this out when we actually have people who are supposed to be in charge of this. When I originally met with some of your staff, from different areas, they said the counselors knew all of this, that the counselors know how to do this. But I think it's important that the general public and the parents and the students can figure this out, not just the counselors. They have to be able to see line of sight. And I feel like this can also help with enrollment. Because if they know that they're going to get a job and they can see the intern, then it's, you know, you're likely to say, okay, I can see my end game. Don't go to school just for the degree. It's now really a stepping stone for a real job.
Well, and it also can show some of these programs that have been developed can show you not only what job you think you want, but the 6 or 7 other ones around it that don't require quite the same skill set and what they earn and what their trajectory is. So it really opens up doors, especially for low socioeconomic students who only really, you know, may not have all of that panoply in front of them.
Yeah.
So
I have to give some credit to Della because, you know, she worked really hard on a lot of this and she came in midstream. I mean, a lot of these documents were before her and she heard my frustration and she tried to figure it out. But it seems like there are resources out there. She needs resources, but we can't give her new resources when there's already resources that are supposed to do it.
Understood.
And so that has to be cleaned up.
Will do.
Any other questions? Okay, why don't we move on to 11? Oh, was that?
Okay, 11 is funding and positions for the UH Manoa, UH West Oahu nursing collaboration. So actually, this is an approach and initiative that has already been in place. But we're calling it phase 3 because it's about the evolution of that the program expansion of the pipeline. So this is position and funds to implement for both of those campuses, a collaboration specifically for nursing. It expands the overall pipeline, i.e. enrollment. And it's also tied to actually the next item 2, item 12.
Questions? You know, I just have a question, not necessarily on this budget item, but your approach, because we have multiple nursing programs. And I know I heard you say that there's really should be a university program. And so how do we make sure that different campuses aren't starting their own programs, that there is one level of excellence, that every one program versus duplicating throughout campuses?
Yeah. So as was already indicated, nursing has an extraordinarily low acceptance rate. It's a very difficult program and a difficult program to enter into. It also has among the most strict accreditation requirements. So the student faculty ratio cannot go above 12. So we're limited by that number on the Manoa campus and elsewhere. So the pathway that we're talking about from West Oahu to Manoa was built in part to address that issue, but also to reach out into another part of the island to encourage, to inspire young people to pursue nursing.
I'm just
as a
wondering if
career.
it's more of a hub and spoke model, or are we duplicating programs?
Hub and spoke model. So the West Oahu students, after 2 years, then move over to Manoa to complete their program. So
Actually, they complete their entire program at West Oahu. And the students that are in the cohort, the pre-nursing cohort. So if I can please say mahalo to Senator Kadani for putting the fire underneath us to get this started. So the students are coming from the west side of Oahu.
Yeah, but there's also the community colleges and making sure that this all ties in, right? So
Yes.
with the hub and spoke model.
Yes, so we do have transfer students who are coming in to our program as well, West Side students.
Yeah.
coming
How,
into our
how is it
program.
branded though? Because I know at Leeward, for instance, it's the KCC nursing program at Leeward. So it's not like it's Leeward's going to stand up its own.
No, that's right, that's right. And so, and they transfer into us.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I guess Maui might have its own though, right? Does Maui have
Yeah.
its own? So that's not a hub and spoke model.
I
Maui has its own program separate from KCC.
have to ask them.
Okay, I mean, I'm not going to dive too much into it, but I'm not sure if how similar or how different they are, or
Yeah, we had to
I
fight
can't figure that out.
in, our Kalihi Neighborhood Board wanted to have a program at Honolulu Community College, because all the nursing was at KCC. But where are all the care homes? Where are all it's from Kalihi all the way to Waipahu. And so, you know, yeah, you didn't have it at West Oahu, you don't have it at HCC. And so, you know, I had to work with Mike Unabasame to see if we can get a hub and spoke to get
Yeah.
something over at HCC. I don't know how far along we've got on that, but those kinds of things shouldn't take the community to have to fight for it. That should be happening.
No, but the hub and spoke model is a better model.
Yes, it is a better model. And our partnership with Manoa has been extraordinary. We have been able to bring in a number of nurses from the west side. We are pushing our limits right now in order for us to bring in more students from Waipahu, from Campbell, from Kapolei, from Mililani. We have to grow our faculty in order to meet that need. We're working with all the health providers as well, so we have clinical positions.
So these
As
four
well.
positions are going to be housed where?
Um,
Because
for
it says,
us, 2 and 2.
okay,
For them, it's 4. So it's 4 that does the BSN program.
no, the four that you're asking for now.
We have no permanent faculty
Oh,
right
okay.
now to do this.
Okay, so
program.
these four will be at West Oahu.
Yes, yes. And that will be our permanent faculty in order to increase. Right now, we have, so in the 3 years that we've been doing this, we have admitted 72 students. This cohort, we have 55 students. And we'd say about 32 to 40 will actually pass the test to be eligible to be accepted into Manoa or to another nursing program. The next cohort that's beginning in the fall, right, we anticipate over 100 applications for maybe 48 spots. And if we do get more positions, we can push it up again.
Okay, any questions? Okay, number 12.
Well, before she goes, I got a question from one of the people watching saying that the numbers that you gave us for enrollment,
Yes.
what percentage is part-time? Because they're saying a huge amount of
All the
numbers of-
nursing, all the
No,
nursing.
I'm talking about your overall enrollment. That's what they're asking about, the
Oh,
overall
okay.
enrollment.
The percentage is pretty high.
It's high, right?
Yeah.
In part-time.
Yeah, it is pretty high because the average age of our students are 26. Many of them
Understand.
full-time employed with families. And so.
Yeah, but when people watching, when you say enrollment, they think that's full-time. So we need
yeah.
to make it known that it hasn't grown exponentially with full-time because you have a lot of part-time as well.
It's head count.
So
Yeah, you're
can
right.
you
It's
send
head
that
count.
information to us?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, number 12.
number 12 is related to UH-HELO. So this is for positions, 5 positions, 357,000 plus in the first year, 475,000, moving to 475,000 by year 2 at full run rate. But this will increase the current nursing program for BS in nursing at the UH-HELO for approximately 40 students.
So is this part of the hub and spoke model, or is this a separate program?
This is UH-HELO's nursing program.
Okay. There's no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it should all be together.
This is the existing 4-year nursing at UH.
President?
Well, part of the lack of systemness is rather evident in this, right? I mean, it gives you a sense of how some things are done this way, some things are done that way. Can we bring them together and do them more effectively and efficiently and frankly, strategically, right? And I think the answer to that is clearly yes. It also then leads to transfer issues, right? If somebody leaves and we have not aligned the curriculum in multiple places that are doing similar things, that's when students lose credits, when they lose time to graduation. So, one of the things that we've been, that I'm hoping to speak about is creating discipline councils that come together from across the different places where it's taught and create a more unified approach to the curriculum and the programs.
Chair, while we're on the nursing program, and this is an issue that we talked about previously with the WAM committee as well. The graduates of the nursing program out of the UH-HELO and Manoa, the certification program is different. And why is that? Because I understand.
That's why she just said that. So she's going to call a discipline council to try to
essentially the
reconcile
people
that.
who are teaching the same subject in different places need to coordinate more clearly to reduce some of this red tape. Now, it may be, I don't know if Michael, you have
But your
something
red
else to
tape
add.
comes, the issue with the neighbor island certification program is controlled by the feds on that particular, there's a name for it, the testing program. But when we started investigating the certification program, I think my staff called your division here and they said, no, Manoa is separate. You're not involved.
So she said she's going to take a look at it.
Great. I'm happy because
there's clearly the federal regulations that everybody has to meet.
We need nurses to be on the job.
Agreed.
But we have a stall. So what were you going to do?
I'm not familiar with the differences in the.
No, I think she answered the question. She's going to review it.
Yeah.
Please.
She's going to review it. Okay, number 13.
Thank you.
Yes.
So number 13 is actually part of the previous discussion regarding the pre-nursing pathway. This is at UH West Oahu for positions, but it is also tied and related to the UH Manoa, UH West Oahu collaboration that we just discussed.
Oh, so this is what you, the chancellor was saying. 4 is going, the first 4 is West Oahu. These 2 are going to go to Manoa.
Well, these 2 and 2 is actually at UH West Oahu for item number 13.
I thought there was some.
We have 4 in total, but the way that the governor.
Okay.
So we asked for 4, but the way that they were going to do it was 2 first year and 2 second year.
I see, but no, but yeah, but number 11 says 4.
This just on the pre-nursing portion, which is UH West.
Okay.
Oh, so you're going to have 6.
4 will be for the BSN piece.
Yeah.
And 2 will be for the pre-nursing piece.
Okay.
6 altogether. 6 altogether.
And this is to help scale up.
Yes.
Is it the same 55?
It'll take us up to right now we're only supposed to be at 48, but we pushed it to 55 because we had to. So this will help us to not only stay at 55, but maybe grow another 10, 15 more.
Okay, questions? 14?
14 is related to the Johnny Burns School of Medicine. So this is a request for general funds to help supplement or augment funds that are needed for debt service on existing bonds that exist at the medical school. So back in time, the University of Hawaii sold revenue bonds, and the state by statute put up a portion of the state's share of the National Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement. So the portion of those funds comes to the state, is distributed by statute to a number of beneficiaries, one of which is the University of Hawaii for JABSUM, explicitly to go towards debt service. These funds have been declining. They've been declining since the master settlement was established. The amount coming to the state has been declining per schedule. That has resulted in the portion that comes to UH also declining on a pro rata basis. The current fiscal year is the first time that the amount of the master settlement portion that comes to the university for debt service was less than the actual debt service itself. So and that is expected to continue to decline. The current debt on the JABSUM bonds runs through 2033, so another 8 years. So this request is to provide an amount to help supplement as the master settlement portion continues to decline, but to have sufficient funds to meet the existing debt service.
So it's my understanding that the legislation and the act for JABSON was that the monies were supposed to be used strictly for the building and debt service. And that in 2009 or 07, that they came in and asked if they could use some of this money for operations. Then it dropped dead, then they came back into extended, and it went until 2015, I believe, 2014, 2015, where it dropped dead, and that the money again had to be only for the building. So my concern and my question is, knowing that the revenues were going down, knowing all of this, then I know you have a little bit of, they put a little bit of money in reserves, but they didn't put any other in reserve when this money was clearly intended to pay the debt service and not for operational. And yes, they needed it, but nothing was saved enough to cover this for the next 8 years. I mean, they had a lot of money coming in where they used it for operation instead of for the building and the debt service.
So the initial establishment of the statute was, again, so this is just factually historic, right? So the initial establishment of the statute, the distribution of the master settlement was explicitly or exclusively for debt service. At some point in time, historically, for a number of years, the statute was amended to allow for including non-debt service expenses.
Yes, because we were asked.
But it is current, and then it was subsequently amended or revised, and currently it is exclusively for debt service.
It was a drop dead in 2015 where the statute dropped dead.
Lapsing.
Right, because they kept asking for it to be renewed. But again, knowing that, why didn't more money not put into reserve to understand that this is dwindling, that you're going to come back to us to keep asking for more money?
And there was some funds that had been established as a reserve or reserve balance, because that's what was tapped to meet the debt
2.5 million, right? That's in the reserve.
Yeah, well, the shortage in the last pursuit was on the order of about 700,000. So there was sufficient from that reserve to meet the debt service last year.
2.5 million, and knowing the debt service, and we have 8 more years. Shouldn't we have planned? It's like when you buy a house and you have mortgage, don't you plan ahead to make sure that you have money for the roof, you have money for the debt service, instead of spending all the paycheck and then have nothing? Or knowing that. you're
Chair, all I
paying
can say
for
is,
this.
whatever expenditures went to operations, historically, it was done so in accordance with what was permissive under the statute.
Understand it was in with the statute. However, listening to when the budget is being reviewed, when the budget is being passed, I didn't hear one region talk about financial, looking at how do we do financial restraint? Are we paying our bills? Where is the money coming? Oh, let's just go to the legislature, ask them for more money. Let's ask them for this. Let's ask them for promise. Let's ask them for this. But I think it's the responsibility of the board to make sure that these kinds of things are being looked at and that there is fiscal responsibility going on. Because we cannot always take from Peter to pay Paul.
Chair, on this one, I think we're going to look for alternative approaches. As Calvert said, and you correctly said, for 6 years, the statute did change to allow for operating expenses. We did not save enough money during those 6 years for what is going to happen in the future. So we have internal discussions amongst ourselves to see maybe how we can mitigate this problem, maybe by not asking you as much, but maybe we can put some skin in the game as well. So that's
Why did we wait till the last hour to say we need these funds instead of looking forward and saying, hey, we anticipate this?
Personally, on this one, I don't think we were aware that we're gonna run short on the debt service. We believe that there would be enough revenue to cover the CHAPSOM debt service. So that one, I think we were caught a little bit by surprise.
Okay, which leads us to the next measure, which is the cancer center in the same situation. Correct?
Yeah, similar, I don't want to say related, similar. Item 15 is a request for general funds to help supplement cancer center debt service and operations. This one, there are existing debt on the construction of the cancer center facility. And there is corresponding debt service annually. By statute, the university receives a portion of the cigarette tax. The cigarette tax per cigarette is currently 16 cents, of which 2 cents of the 16 cents comes into the university for the Cancer Center Special Fund. By statute, the permissible uses are for first charge debt service, and secondly, also for non-debt service operation expenses. Cigarette tax, very much like the, as I mentioned earlier with the master settlement, cigarette tax has been declining statewide for a number of years, decades. The consumption of cigarettes has also been declining, therefore it corresponds to a decline in the cigarette tax revenue. As that cigarette tax revenue has been declining, the debt service continues to be nearly a fixed level. This debt will run through 2041 about. And it is forecasted that cigarette tax revenue, short of a revision in the cigarette tax statute, will very quickly go the same way as JAPSOM, where the rate of revenue will decline below the current rate of debt service. So this request is to consider general funds to augment the cigarette tax revenue in order to meet debt service demands, but also to provide funding for cancer center operations.
For $9 million. Can I ask I want to ask the Board of Regents Chair. So Chair Lee, when you folks discuss this, I did not hear anything brought up about the revenues and the expenses of the cancer center. So were you folks aware that since 2007, and members, you all have copies of this on your desk, since 2007 to today, 2025, that the cigarette tax distribution has been $2.5 million plus. $2.5 million. Should I say? And that the debt service is only 104. Is a million or million? So you had an excess of over 1.5 over the years, and none of it was saved? None of it was put into a reserve? Were you folks aware of this?
No,
Numbers?
I wasn't aware of the composition of what was debt service and what was.
Did you guys even ask about it?
We've, although we may not ask about it in the board meetings, there are a lot of discussions when it comes down to the committee meetings as well as outside conversations with the vice president and President Lasner at that time. We are learning more about the cancer center from the time that you had the hearing last year on February 6th. And that's something, and as same thing with this hearing, we are learning a lot too.
Okay, I've been raising this concern, you know that. So back in 2014, this article came out, 2014. Costs outweigh funding revenue. Research grants won't cover the costs. That they knew back then that the costs, that the revenues were going down, 2014. And in 2016, the Board of Regents, January 27, 2016, the Board of Regents had a meeting and they did say the time is critical because the reserves of the center will run out in less than the projected time. Okay, and in addition to that, we have very many studies and reports done by the University of Hawaii, done by Bacillus, your group have done the study, right? Where the Warburg study, all of these were happening since 2014. We knew this is what's going to happen. And we kept asking, I've asked last year, the year before, I've asked the cancer center, I have the new director, what is the plan? What is the long-term plan? And I keep hearing, oh, we just raised the tobacco tax by 2 cents. That is not a long-term plan because smoking is going down. That's going to continue to dwindle. You know, so what is going on? And this question has been raised to the Board of Regents, their own regents under Regent Higaki did a report and did a study that said similarly the same thing. So I'm just concerned that your answer is to come in and ask the legislature for $9 million to continue that when more monies were put into reserve, knowing that this was going down? Dr. Sermos, you want to answer that?
I don't know why you're looking at me, but
Well, because you did that report. You did that one report.
we knew back at 2015 that at that point we had projected that the annual decrease of the
This is the report.
cigarette tax would be 7%. So we knew exactly we would be
I have
here
the whole report here.
back in 2015. Unfortunately, we didn't save enough out of that reserve, out of the $250 million, as you said.
Well, who determined that? Who determined that money would go into a reserve fund so that we wouldn't be in this situation? Or as bad a situation as we're in now?
I think this is a decision, I think, that the campus was making at that time.
So what was the campus's response? Didn't they go to Warburg, did a study, and the study came out saying that we should combine the cancer center and the Jobson to save money? Didn't they also say that we shouldn't embark on early clinical trials because it's not going to be self-sustaining?
So these are.
Well, you guys paid for this money. You guys paid for the study. UH paid for the study.
I think that was under the leadership of Dr. Jerez, that report. But now you're bringing two different things. We have a structural fundamental problem for the future of the cancer center. and that is the debt service and part of their operations, whether there are clinical trials or not.
But
Cancer
clinical
center
trials
does
will take
it.
money away from the cancer center. That's a concern. We don't want the cancer center to go bankrupt. And if we're embarking on new programs, and we just saw another new program front page about a month ago in the newspaper, another $10 million program, when you guys can't even pay the debt service. So
Yeah, but as I said, these are two different issues. My number one priority and worry is the well-being of the cancer center. And the well-being of the cancer center is guaranteed by having enough money to pay the debt service and run basic operations. In the absence of that, there will be no clinical trials. They wouldn't even be the cancer center the way we know it today. The university will never default on the debt service. That's a given, but we do worry about the well-being of the cancer center as a whole.
So do we cut expenses down? I mean, we stop embarking on all these programs that
I don't think that maybe Michael can, Dr. Bruno can answer those.
Michael is fine, Vasilis. So I think you start the conversation by saying the campus is never going to default on the debt.
I'm sorry.
I said we start the conversation by saying, and I know Calvert has said this many times in our internal conversations, we will not default on this debt. That's not an option. And so two things in this conversation. One is to the extent we need to, we will reach across the campus and take reserves and apply them as needed to and put a fence around those funds, as obviously should have been done a decade or more ago, to make sure we can pay down the debt.
In the meantime, are you looking at options on what we can do to cut costs and
Yes,
to save money, like bringing the Cancer Center Japsons together as one?
That is precisely the other
Fiscal
conversation that we have started.
But you're still embarking on the early clinical trials when clearly that's going to only add costs and not.
Well, the clinical trials, and I'm the dean of the medical school here behind me, and the
We're going to
cancer
have
center director here.
have a hearing in the committee on that because we
Yeah.
don't have time today. But this
Okay.
is the same thing that I've talked about last year and the year before.
Yep.
And the numbers haven't changed. We're still waiting for the business plan. We haven't received the business plan yet.
I
Have
agree
you
with
folks
you.
received the business plan?
No,
Because we kept being told that the director was going to give us a business plan and we have yet to receive the business.
there are clearly untapped opportunities for cost savings by reorganizing the Kaka'ako campus as a medical science campus that includes both Cancer Center and the School of Medicine. The dean and I have talked about even having a physical location for other aspects, components of our health sciences programs there.
So when do we get to?
This conversation is brand new. It's been the last month or so.
But it's 5 years late.
I totally agree with you.
Is this something that you folks have discussed with the Board of Regents?
I think we have. I don't recall the board having a focus meeting. That from time to time, the director of the Cancer Center provides an update. We've not had an opportunity to have the two leads come either to the board or to us as a group. We did, at your urging and a resolution, we did assign the CFO of each entity, the Cancer Center and JAPSM, to meet and to come forward with ideas on cost efficiencies. That was delivered maybe 2 years ago. I would say that was not earth-shaking in its
creativity or its impact.
But I haven't seen any fiscal restraint in the last 2 years. In fact, if anything, I've seen expenditures, more and more money's being spent on that. So I'm going to ask that Board of Regents read all the reports, and there's only like 3 or 4 of them, 3 of them done by the university themselves, to look it over and then respond back to us.
And so for the, you're talking about the Holcomb report, the Warburg.
The
yeah.
Warburg, Holcomb, the
Yeah, so,
Thermos, and the Higaki report.
After the last hearing on February 6th of last year, we did have the Cancer Center come in after that.
Right, I saw that, but you
Yeah.
folks didn't even ask the pertinent questions.
After that and recently, we have asked, like on the early phase
Clinical trials.
clinical trials that, where they had their projections as well as the Holcomb report and other reports, that at least there's be some type of comparison to see, how they differ.
Right,
And then,
they're actually similar.
although I would say expenses are still going up, they are gearing up for the, early phase clinical trials.
Which is what
Yeah.
worries me, because you're hiring a very expensive oncologist, you're hiring all of these people that I don't know that we can sustain. And that's a concern.
In our recent updates, from the, Cancer Center, there has been some progress on, the, renting of, leasing of the other floors and
Right, can we
Yeah.
see the agreement to that? I believe there's no really written agreement, so
I have not seen.
can we get that? There's a written agreement with Queens and on that, and how much they're paying and where the guarantees are? My understanding is there's nothing in writing or no contract. Is that correct, Calbert?
I'm not aware, but if one exists, we can certainly give it to you.
Okay, well, it just amazes me how this thing is battered around, that we have all of this, but we have nothing in writing, you know? And that's the same thing with the consortium. They're gonna give all this money and yet we don't have any guarantees. When I asked Queens, no guarantees on some of this stuff. So can we get that, Senator?
Question, since 2015, I listened to a Senator, Donna Kim saying, so who's in charge of the expenditures and keeping track of what's coming in? Because like any household, right? You make minimum wage, but you're spending way more before your costs. By the end of the year of your costs, you could be bankrupt. So 2015 to now, nobody would even sound any alarms or any bells knowing that the increase the money that was coming in was decreasing over the years, which I guess apparently a lot of people knew, but nobody would think to control the spending or try to figure something out going forward. I'm not a mathematical genius, you know, I only went high school, but there's a big disconnect. How you cannot know, how can nobody know to say, oh, wait, we shouldn't spend this much of our dollars because we're getting less here. How isn't that not really alerted? Because you guys come in here, you guys
Okay,
explain.
let them answer.
Okay, all right.
Who was here back then?
Sorry.
Who was here since 2015?
I think all of us but the president were here back in 2015. The Cancer Center reports back then used to report to the Vice Chancellor for Research at Manoa, and subsequently it reported to the Provost and the President, because the President was also the CEO of Manoa. So these discussions have been very robust at times between the system and the campus, but I don't think any hard decision was made the last decade one way or the other.
In fact, you folks fought us. You fought our bill to combine the Cancer Center and the medical school, even though it was in your report that it should be done. So every step of the way of us trying to help, it was opposed by the administration. Right, Calbert? It was opposed by you guys.
I believe we did, our official position was to oppose that bill, yes.
Okay, why don't we move on? Number 16.
Item 16, okay, so this is two positions, so this is UH West Oahu, two positions for $67,000 in the first year, but that's at 50%, assuming that they wouldn't be filled for half of the year. And then running at a full rate of 133 plus thousand in the second year. These are two positions that are not, this is to support the Academy of Creative Media facility, so the building itself. So this is not academic support or faculty in that. These are for the very mundane positions to keep a building running. So things such as, these would be positions comparable to, say, physical plant maintenance, that type of thing.
Janitor positions.
Right, yeah.
The building's been up for what, 4 years, 5 years? How have you been maintaining it without these two
Yeah,
positions?
so what I've heard from the campus is that, the maintenance portion of the building, it is new. So there's, initially there was not as much need for maintain, but you certainly don't want a building to fall into disrepair, especially and it has run a time. There's these types of services have been running on a string until.
But we also want it to serve what it was built for.
The grounds. Yeah, so these positions are for the maintenance of both the grounds and the facility itself.
No, the question was, how are you paying for maintenance up to now?
We have been stretching the maintenance people across our campus. So we have 7 buildings and 6 janitors across all of the buildings. And so they have been working together and 3 of the buildings have very high technical equipment in them. And so with coming, we didn't feel it over COVID, right? But coming back and getting more heat on campus, our 6 people are being stretched quite a bit. So we do need someone who is assigned specifically to the creative media facility with all of its equipment and the many different spaces that it has. In terms of our grounds, we have 5 people who take care of 1,400 acres. And that is becoming untenable as well. So it's just trying to get our service people who are actually very important to the maintenance of our land and our facilities.
Sean.
You have questions on the 2 janitors?
No, she has a question on this.
Okay, Senator Fukunaga.
Go ahead. I believe in the Regent's budget request, there was a request for 5 positions. So
Right.
perhaps if you can describe, some of the functions of the 5 positions, I believe they were more than simply janitorial.
Right. So 2 of them are the facilities positions, right? And one of them is for security. Again, our security is stretched. The other 2 have to do with the actual usage of the facility. One has more to do with our entire audio suite. So currently, ACM only has 4 positions. 3 of them are faculty positions, 1 general media, 1 film, documentary, 1 more of a generalist. And the 4th one is the person who takes care of all the equipment, opens up, closes, and APT works 40 hours a week. So that's all we have right now in the facility. So the other 2 positions really are to expand the use of our audio facility, our ability for digital and film media, our maker space. Those are what the other 2 positions are, so that we could offer more of our classes and get more people into the facility. So right now we have lecturers coming in. We don't have any permanent people. So those other 2 positions are just as important as the other 3.
But in terms of the 5 positions that were requested, wouldn't those 5 positions enable the building to be used at full capacity? And so I believe one of the things that we had talked about, and I know Senator Kidani had probably encouraged this in the past was once the facility is built, you know, as a state-of-the-art facility
Yes.
in Hawaii, we could also rent the use of the facility for private production assistance and then perhaps generate additional revenues to also contribute towards the long-term expansion and development of your programming. Is that an accurate
Yes,
assessment?
that's absolutely. That has been Chris Lee's vision as well. And I believe when he said that when he, you know, built the facility, that he had in mind 14 positions to actually run the facility to its capacity. Yeah.
So
we
that would
yeah.
also help us in terms of generating additional revenue, which could contribute
Yes.
to maintenance of this very expensive high-tech equipment, right?
If I may, I want to come back to the theme that's developing here about systemness and being a true system. So the Manoa faculty, you know, we've spent several years now trying to figure out how to get Manoa students out there. Some are going out there, not all that I'd like to see. The hurdle, the barrier is the absence of the appropriate staffing in the building to run the equipment, very sophisticated equipment. So we are really strongly supportive of this request because it's going to help. Yes, the 5, it's going to help Manoa students immensely.
So why haven't you had the staff? Because what we're hearing is that space is beautiful and you have the equipment, but it's not being used. So if you have more connections with the media industry, they can come in and teach or help. And as Senator Fukunaga says, can help generate some revenue. But right now it's mostly vacant.
Yeah.
So why haven't you funded positions to do what you're saying?
For Manoa, so Manoa has faculty in this area. I've met with them and asked them, do you have the technical expertise to use this equipment? The answer is no. So we'll be talking about brand new positions. If you're asking why Manoa hasn't hired our own people to go out to West Oahu.
Together, West Oahu and Manoa.
The answer is the system.
You have
Yeah.
a facility and you have faculty.
Yes. The answer is the system office needs to be investing in it. This was
How long did
constructed
it
as
take
a
you guys to
system.
figure that out? The building has
Yeah.
been standing for 5 years.
Yeah.
But Chris Lee is with the system.
Yes.
So why I don't understand how some people are with the system, some are Manoa, some are West Oahu. It seems kind of cobbled together.
I do want to say that there are professors at UH Manoa who are using the facility right now. Jason Lee with the Lava Lab is in partnership with our CreateX. He teaches classes there at UH West Oahu in ACM as well. We have a partnership with the Office of Indigenous Knowledge and Innovation. They also have a variety of different programs that they run out. That's in Facilis that they run. So there are system opportunities for Manoa, the system and the community
I mean,
colleges.
that's fine. So when is this convening between what should be system, Manoa, and West Oahu actually gonna take place so that we can kind of see the overall plan?
We have been talking with Jason Lee, Facilis, and our creative and our community college partners in creating pathways for their courses to be taught and for their students to come to UH West Oahu. So that conversation is going on and they are coming.
So just one more question in terms of pathways, you know, as the chair spoke about pathways to jobs, careers. We have the creative industries is one of the pillars for economic development for the state. And so I know there are Good Jobs Hawaii working on pathways, but if you've got people being taught and you have equipment here, and you don't have a pathway to go to a job or career, you have people leaving the state. So we don't have the production companies being grown here or being kept here so that we can in fact have careers. So it's like a dead end if you're not connecting. So what are you doing about that? Or
Yeah.
the system doing about that?
Well, the UH West Oahu, working with the community colleges, have pathways directly into our four-year program
But what about the jobs and careers? for
and
DBED?
into jobs. The
Are
good
you
jobs.
working with DBED, the Creative Industries Division?
Good
maybe,
jobs.
maybe we can just take a step back then
Yeah.
and just, I think you should regroup instead of,
Thank you.
because your conversations are different than a plan. And so, although I appreciate you having those conversations, we probably need to take that to the next level of actually developing a clear-cut plan of what systems role is, what Manoa, what West Oahu, and how it all
How it all
is
ties
integrated
together.
with the
Okay.
community colleges.
And then we may
Same
have to
thing we've
make
been
it,
talking
Yeah.
about, right? The lack of coordination between the various pieces that contribute to the whole. There is tremendous opportunity here, tremendous. If we could get the staffing that we need to have it open more often to bring people in and have these programs. But you're absolutely correct. It is on the system to articulate a combined and integrated plan that elevates all of these campuses in a seamless way
Yeah.
for the benefit of the students. And we do plan to do that and look forward to bringing that back to you.
and it's good to hear that because we've not heard that kind of commitment from the past. But the other thing about, you got to make it clear, Chancellor, that this four-year program is only social media. You don't have any film, right?
We have a documentary program, short format.
But you don't have a film school.
We're not the film school. No, we are
Yeah.
not the film school,
Well,
although.
It's not the film school, but you should, I mean, we built this
Yeah.
building for film, not just for social media or for, sports. I
But
mean,
that hopefully will be integrated
Yes.
into this more comprehensive joint plan
That's
now
right.
that you can present
That's
back.
right.
well, I don't know how they can when they don't even have
Well,
professors.
we only have four. Well, that's why we need.
Why wasn't it done in the beginning? Why haven't film been part of this?
I wasn't here when. Just looking for.
No, but you don't determine, who determines which program goes to which campus?
But we built this facility
No,
for
I'm saying-
film, yes.
Yeah, I know, but then
So the campus-
is it the system that says,
Yes, we were not duplicating programs. And when creative media was established at West Oahu, it did not include the film cinematic arts. That was Manoa had that for quite some
Okay.
time. So it wasn't the duplication.
Yeah, but why would we build a facility like that if you're not going to do film? So if it's not going to duplicate it, we should have put it on Manoa then, if that's the case. That
the
makes
problem.
no sense.
And I think, yeah, and I'm not aware of any pathways that you, for DOE. Are you working with DOE to create pathways for their students so that you have students?
Yeah, we do have, and right now, we have pathways with 2, 4, 6, 7 schools.
What schools?
So we have pathways with Campbell High School. Right now, there are almost 50 students at Campbell, Mililani, Kapolei, Pearl City, Waipahu, Waianae. That's 6, I'm sorry, 6.
okay, Senator Fukunaga?
Perhaps, by way of clarification, Chris Lee is in the audience today, and I think for some of the questions that Senator Kim and Senator Kidani are asking, it's sort of,
No, we can wait till they come up with the plan and then we have a more robust.
they have a plan, and there has been.
No, a plan that includes the system, Manoa.
There has been a plan for the last 5-10 years, and I think Senator Kidani was relying upon those plans at the time that the legislature funded the ACM facilities at UH West Oahu campus. I think if you can just respond to some of the questions, it will be clearer that actually all of this has been part of the plan from the very beginning. And so I would credit Senator Kidani for having led the way in getting that facility
Okay,
constructed.
you can call him up if you have a question for him.
Well,
If not, we
perhaps-
gotta move on.
Okay.
You have a
Perhaps-
question?
I don't have a question, but I think he might be able to respond to some of the
Oh,
questions.
they didn't ask for him. So
Okay,
if you have a question, then I can call him up.
okay, fine.
Okay, why don't we move on? Number 17.
Number 17, Chair, we previously discussed, this is UH Manoa, 4 positions, 320,000 for new positions for Manoa Athletics.
Okay, number 18.
Number 18, so the number 18 is related to special funds, method of funding B. So this is a request for ceiling increase. Again, it's not general fund appropriation, it's ceiling increase for 955,000. It's related to the need for the increase is related to the special fund research recharge center. So this is, I see Senator Moriwaki frowning. This is technical on special fund ceiling increase is not money to departments, right? This is increasing the legislative allowance for special funds that if the special fund earns the revenue or gets the revenue, it can spend that revenue up to the ceiling. So this one and item 19, the next one, is in the budget for method of funding B, an increase in the method of funding B ceiling, but that increase is related to this special fund research recharge center and the conference workshop courses, so non-SRRC projects related to use of this special fund.
So just to clarify, what are the sources of funding that goes into this special fund? And is it just kind of like free money that you could then raise the ceiling and use the funds in various ways, or how does that work?
So for the conference center, these are funds that they are being accumulated, charged by attendees. So if you go to a conference and you pay $500, that is deposited here, and then that allows the university to pay the hotel, to pay for maybe a function, reception. So these are not state funds. And this one actually is a result from Senator Kim. I think a couple of years ago, she put the university through an exercise to clean our revolving funds from RCUH. So we had to transfer that within the university and allow a spending limit.
So what is the balance in this account, this special fund for conferences and so forth? You're asking to raise the ceiling, but what is the amount in the fund?
At this time, it is 0 because we don't have one. But if you allow us to establish this,
Oh, so there's no fund right now. There's no such thing as a recharge fund?
There's no.
These were because the reason for the increase is really, so a lot of these expenses actually used to be paid for through RCUH. But since a couple of years ago, or all of that activity was brought back into UH. The RCUH is no longer able to be the, so that has resulted in the university actually have to expend out of this fund.
Yeah.
And it's federal funds.
This is all the stuff.
It can be, but it's basically earned revenue from the activity. So it's earned revenue from the activity. So if the example was conference or some activity that's extramural federally funded, that's the source of funds, and that can get expended. But it requires that the amount of the expenditure has to be below the current ceiling. So that's the increase. This is not like money sitting in a pot just waiting to be spent. It's money that's going to come in, and the need for the increase in the ceiling is so that it can be spent.
You can collect.
You can, that we can spend it up to a cap, which is set by the legislature as this.
Moving on.
Okay,
The very similar for item number 19 is special ceiling increase, but it's related to career and technical education program, the CTE program. So it's $6 million as ceiling. So again, this is a method of funding N, So in the budget for all, in the aggregate for method of funding N, this doesn't mean that there's $6 million sitting there, or may not mean that there's $6 million, or that we will be able to generate $6 million worth of activity. This is to increase the ceiling that if we get there, we can expend up to the ceiling.
Can you just explain what the expenditures and processes are going to be?
For both of these?
No, the last one, number 19. Says to accommodate CTE annual grant expenditures. So what are those expenditures and revised processes?
Good afternoon, Stephen Schatz, Executive Director of Hawaii P20 and State Director of Career and Technical Education. This is our federal allocation. And what happens is we get an allocation from the Carl Perkins grant, and then our State Office of Career and Technical Education has some administrative costs off the top, and then 85% of the allocation by the federal government gets split equally between the University of Hawaii Community College system and the Department of Education. So we monitor those expenditures, make sure they're in compliance with the state CTE plan.
Okay, well, because in the past, when we talked about some of these pathways, your office had said that you don't really control or have any management over DOE or community colleges or any of the campuses. But then if they can get funding, there should be conditions on the funding so that we can have alignment better.
Agreed. I think so. We're looking at our new CTE plan, and one of the things that we're looking at is how can we leverage that allocation to ensure that schools at the DOE, but also complex areas and the school district as a whole, as well as the community colleges, are both aligned with one another and aligned with workforce needs. So part of our CTE planning involves thinking about that 7 million and how we can leverage it. There's a whole bunch of money in the state spent on career and technical education that is not the federal allocation. So certainly we don't have control over what campuses spend out of G funds to support.
But if there's a master plan, then we can condition those funds, that funds that go to the department on CTE to make sure that there's alignment.
Correct.
But we don't necessarily have one yet. And
we're right in the midst of creating a new CTE plan. And so we've been working together with the leadership from the Department of Education, as well as the UH community colleges and the UH system to try and create a plan that's aligned.
Yeah. Okay, because I'm not sure what the venue is. A joint meeting between the Board of Education and the Board of Regents so that there is some discussion, and it's because if not, there is a silo and then there's separation, but it needs to be a lot more integrated.
Appreciate that. That's something we'll take back and have a conversation with the leadership of the planning team.
Or somehow, even if it's a joint committee between several Board of Education members and several regents to really make sure that there is connectivity and it's going to work.
Appreciate that and agree with you 100%.
Any other questions? Okay, the rest is all collective bargaining, so that's obvious. So if members have other questions on the other tables, then we can proceed with those. Senator Elefante.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question on your CIP table. Table 15, CIP requests. Could you provide a breakdown of the 25 million for your student housing improvements? And if that includes partnerships that you have with private entities that build student housing?
Yes, we can provide you a breakdown.
Can you state your name?
Pardon me. Good afternoon, Jan Govea, Vice President for Administration. Yes, we do have a breakdown for the 25 million. The Board of Regents approved request, however, I'd just like to point out, was for 61 million in FY26 and 50.
We can see that.
Okay, just make sure it's out there. But they are all straight up CIP projects. It does not currently include any partnerships with P3s.
Okay, but if you could provide the breakdown to the committees, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So follow up, I don't see anything on College Hill. What's happening with College Hill? And why isn't it the president is not going to be at that residence?
Yes, so maybe for context, the last time College Hill was used as a primary residence for any UH president was it looks like back in 2008, so almost 15 years
Before
ago.
Greenwood.
First, yeah. And so there was a decision made, you know, not to invest in maintaining it at the primary residence level of condition. If we continue to go down that path, then, you know, we wouldn't maintain it at that level. But if it is desired to have it be the primary residence for the new UH president, then we can take a look at what it would.
Well, who makes that decision, John? Not us. Who makes that decision? Is it the Board of Regents that make the decision?
Well, wait, if it's not made, it's going to end up being by us. So somebody should make the
By
decision.
default, it is not, right? But we would rely on CIP funding to make those improvements.
Okay, but the decision was made by the university not to use it, right? Because my understanding is when President Greenwood came in, she didn't want to stay there. She wanted to stay elsewhere. And when President Lasner got it, he already had a home, so he didn't use it. So now we got a new president. She wasn't even offered it, from my understanding. So now but who makes that decision? Because I have a list of all of the repairs that's been made on the re-roofing, on the thermal and moisture proofing subcontractors of the main house, on the re-roofing and stuff like that. That's as late as 2012. These things are being done. So what is the house being used for? What is it costing us to maintain? And we're paying for housing for the new president. What does that add up to? And if we're not going to use this for President House, then what's the plan? And is this something that the Board of Regents have taken up? Have you folks taken this up, Chair Lee? Is there a reason, are you guys even aware about this? I mean, I'm sure you know that the president is not staying there.
Right now, I think when we're over there, it's for receptions and.
So it's being
lunch
used
meetings.
for receptions. How many receptions do you hold there a year?
We can get that information. I don't have that information.
So is it cost effective? Do we charge for these receptions or these are UH receptions?
I don't know if we charge. I don't think
It's mostly used for like foundation activities, so receptions, but those are like community soliciting philanthropy.
So once a week, once a month, how
Yeah,
often?
I don't know how long it is. But it's not, it's more than once a week. It's clearly more than once a week or twice a week, I could tell you.
So what is our cost of this property, cost to maintain it? And what is the plan? Because if we're not going to utilize it, then there needs to be a plan for it. It's expensive real estate just sitting there to do foundation receptions.
Yeah, so I think Jen can probably provide more details, but we do expend a fair amount to maintain it in its current condition, but that is at a level that it's not intended for habitation. So things like the requests or what improvements that have been done, it's really to maintain it at what was the expected use, which was not for somebody to be living there. So there are other expenditures that would be like critically urgent if someone was actually to try to.
So was there analysis been made as to the cost for a housing allowance, cost of maintaining it to the minimum and having receptions there to keeping it to what it was intended to be? And is that part of the university's so-called, what did you say to the House of how the impression that the sorry, President, you used some nice descriptions about you know, the image that we want to put out, the level of the university, I think that house adds to that, right? And if not, then, and it's not for her to decide, it's obviously not her decision. But it's got to be somebody, and it's not probably not yours. Again, it goes back to the Board of Regents, and these are things that are not being discussed or put on the agenda. Or
For what it's worth, it's not my decision where I'm living now, to be very clear about that. That was part of the contract that
Right.
came to me as is, that
Right,
I
so I'm
was,
not fault-
yeah.
faulting you at
But
all.
I think it would be within the president's purview to investigate the questions that you've raised and then make a recommendation to the board as to the use of that housing. This, I sound a little bit like a broken record, but it's actually a national conversation that's happening about whether it makes sense to maintain expensive real estate as presidential residences as opposed to doing housing allowances or working that into the salary in the front. So we actually have had some initial conversations, and I think we plan to ask that question with data this year.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense to do both,
Yeah,
right?
agreed.
We have to do one or the other, or if we do keep the house, what is the intention?
But I think most of us agree, though, that we need to do the renovations. It's, you know, it's a beacon up on the hill,
Yeah.
and we should maintain it. Another thought is that, you know, you have good relationship with East West Center, and you may consider that work out a deal with East West Center to use the facility as well, because they entertain many of the international visitors as well, with you folks as hosts. And, you know, they may even take it over and you can have some rent coming into the campus. But it is a
It's a beautiful,
facility
yeah,
that
it's a
we should
beautiful.
maintain.
Senators, so to be clear, to utilize College Hill, even for receptions or these, there is a charge. So whoever uses it, there is a charge that you must pay. That all goes towards the upkeep and maintenance of College Hill.
Well,
So
can you submit what that cost is and how many receptions you've had and how much you've collected?
And for non-UH.
And the cost.
So the charge for non.
Well, show us how many UH, and show us how many non-UH and what are the ones that you
But
get.
Jan, this isn't the only home that the university owns, right? There's that other one that School of Architecture had near Waialae.
we
You were able to get, yeah,
the donor to the
Oh, okay.
Charbonneau family. But it was primarily because maintaining these properties are very expensive. And they are all historic, registered
Right.
historic properties. So,
yeah.
yeah, so that one was an example. The university, we did an
Yeah.
assessment. Internally, you know, there's a lot of tension about giving up these properties. But, and then the other side is about how to maintain them. And maintain
That could have
them
been a
to-
kauhale. Why did you return it?
Well, maintaining them into
No, you don't want
respect and honor of the donor. Right? So even with College Hill, it's not like the state bought it. You know, so
Yeah.
with that project. So that was the decision on the.
Are there others?
But there are others.
Yeah.
So,
How many?
I'm aware of at least two other ones, one being HIMB out in Kaneohe for the donated, it's the former Jack Lord estate, I believe. Donated specifically as a residence for the HIMB director. And I think there might be another property.
Who is that director? What is HIMB?
The little strand, no.
Yeah, send us
Can we just get a list?
So,
HIMB.
I'm sorry,
What is HIMB?
Hawaii Institute for Marine Biology, so Coconut Island.
Oh.
And for the university to get these properties, it cannot come directly to the university. So it is through the UH Foundation. And there is a standard default practice, again, that these properties have to honor, you know, the intent of the donor. So a lot of times these would never be put into service. They would be, if a decision was made to accept it, it is in conjunction with the foundation and the academic program to receive it. But many times it's, you know, liquidated basically. Yeah, because again, maintaining real estate is very expensive, and there's a lot of non-financial qualitative factors that go in that pretty much weigh to the decision about utilizing or keeping real estate. It's not monetary.
And thank you for our Hilo renovations projects that's been on the wait list for quite some time. Thanks for this year's request.
Can you list the properties that you do have?
We will provide a list, but I believe it's not gonna be a lot. We're talking like two properties.
But could you also include whether you have to maintain it and what the cost is to maintain it?
Yeah, give us
Yes.
the cost. Can I also ask, what's the status of Sinclair?
The
Student Success Center?
project is scheduled to be completed by September/October-ish of this year.
So we're behind schedule, right, for the original?
Maybe just by a few months.
And what's the cost? Did we go overrun?
We did have change orders that were processed. And it was to
What's the
add
cost of
primarily
overruns? How much?
the
How
total
much did it go
change
over cost?
well, I have some preliminary figures.
Because we gave you folks how much money? 50?
60,
Six-
oh no, 40,
48 or 52 or
the
something?
original contract amount was 56 million.
And we gave you folks 56?
I think you gave us 40.
Okay, and then?
And so we added, we were able to supplement the original award amount.
Oh, yeah.
Because the cost of construction is higher. That was it came in higher, and so we were able to supplement that with RIM funds.
So you used the RIM funds for this. How much RIM funds did you use?
About 15 million.
15?
Yep. Or 40 minus 56.
How much?
16 million.
16 million. So we gave you 40, use 16 from RIM funds for 56
For
million.
the base contract.
So is that still at 56 million? Base contract?
Yes.
You didn't go over it?
And so from there, we did have change orders
We can
that
tell the whole story.
took us to right about 5 million in change orders right now.
So we're looking at 61 million spending on Sinclair.
Yes.
Okay, because the last time I asked last year, you guys said it was on budget, so forth, when I'd heard that it was already going over budget, so, okay, 61 million, and it's
The
gonna.
biggest amount really was the amount of furniture allowance that was provided. We felt wasn't sufficient furniture. We desired more tables and chairs in the Student Success Center. So the biggest amount of the change was to purchase or acquire additional furniture.
Do you know what the vacancy report is on Atherton?
Vacancy report. Oh,
How many-
Vacancy amount.
I don't know.
Great.
I don't know. I don't know the specific vacancy amount for this semester.
Going back to the RIM funds, so you used 15 million from RIM. What did it came out of RIM? So what project didn't get funded because you took it out of RIM? Just like when you folks took money out of RIM for Chingfield, what projects was not done?
Yeah, we can get you, I don't have that offhand, but we do have all of that tracked.
Okay, we would appreciate having that. Thank you. No, I think she does. So why don't I continue then? If we're talking about Halinoilani, that's 152 units, 530 beds, that is out of commission, right? And then Wainani status. We talked about the plumbing and so forth. What's the status of that?
So out of this past year's RIM appropriation to the system, 20.1 or 21 million of that was allocated for student housing improvements. The largest portion of which was to begin the design for Holland Wainani. And that is to do basically a complete exterior improvement project, which is roughly about a $40 million effort, and an interior plumbing, painting, basically like a gut and renovation for another 60 million. So this year's funding was to begin the design for all of that. And the part of the request for the 50 million in student housing, or that's sorry, 25 and 25 would go towards funding the Wainani improvements as well as other improvements.
Do you folks poll your residents? Because if you go on Yelp, you know, you read all kinds of stuff, how these dorms are very disgusting, about how they woke up with bites from centipedes, stuff like that. Do you folks, you know, follow your students as to or your residents of these dorms?
We do surveys at the end of every year.
And you folks do address these issues that they raise? Because we do get a couple of calls regarding those things. So,
yes.
Just to add, I also walked every property on Manoa to see it physically, visually, and talk to the students that were there as well.
Well, you should be congratulated, President, because the last president didn't even know that we had this dorms that was vacant for 7 years.
What's your video? I just gotta follow up. You know, like for the small ticket items on the improvements, did you guys ever think to talk to maybe the community colleges or even like the different trades, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, to come out? Not the big expensive ones, but the minor kind, that you could have them come and help you guys offset the cost of the maintenance, because we know it was about 130 years on not having maintenance there, but maybe they can help you guys with fixing some of the stuff that is maybe a little bit more low hanging fruit.
We have not done that formally. I think we may have some union issues.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't have the conversation. So I think that's.
The only reason why I say that is because some of this costly stuff that we're talking about, and we're not saying to take anybody's job. I'm just saying is the jobs that some people don't want to do, especially custodial work, have somebody come in there and fix a minor leak or some kind of carpentry work, just to have the better quality of life for the students, whoever's at the dorms going forward. Because I know every time I talk to Senator De La Cruz, he's always talking about academies and pathways and stuff like that. So it'd be really good to have that trade agreement or whatever I'm talking about the school level. You don't have to actually go to the unions. But I know the schools have different academies in there at the college. They can help you guys do some improvements on campus. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I'm not sure who would be best to answer or give us an update on the performance-based funding.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Debbie Halbert, Vice President, Academic Strategy.
So if you can just give us an update, and when was the last time any of the metrics was updated?
So the metrics as well, how much history do you want on this?
Well, not everybody may know about
Okay,
it, so
so a little bit of background, the performance-based funding has been in operation since around 2015. And so the initial metrics were established based on the state plan 55 by 25 at that point. And those were aspirational metrics. So we had a plan, right? 55% of the population would have some degree or certificate by the year this year. And so the metrics were established based on achieving that goal. So they were always intended to be stretch goals, aspirational goals. At the beginning of our new strategic plan, which we are now, of course, in about year 2 of, we reevaluated those metrics. So one of the things that became clear from the initial process is if the campus didn't achieve the metrics the first year, then they were unlikely to continue to achieve them because, of course, those were built upon each year assuming a sort of clear trajectory in one direction towards the future. So the second evaluation of those metrics, which we did in 2023, looks at a moving baseline so that there's some way of calibrating the changes over time. But we did also look to a 2% increase in enrollment as one of those base metrics. And if you look on the website, you can see the different details of the metrics as well. So what happens is that money comes to the system, and then the campuses can achieve some of the performance-based funding based on the metrics that they meet. And then the system itself retains that to identify strategic initiatives that can help with our student success processes across the system for those monies that aren't earned by the campus.
Okay, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have that only 22% was awarded out.
I can look up the exact numbers, but yeah, the number that was awarded out in this past year was relatively small to the campuses, again, because there's these sort of constant increases. We're thinking we need to go back and look at how we're doing those metrics, because there's.
Well, it should align to what all the things we talked about earlier.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
And so there's still about 5 million left. So when there's money left, what does the system do with the money? And who determines? I know you said it's strategic investments, but I'm not sure. I mean, you could label that. Yeah, you could label anything that.
Yeah, and we can provide lists of what they've been spent on. Generally, a lot of that money is spent on, for example, transfer initiatives. There's also, as the president has mentioned, some interest in some technological solutions that we could leverage system-wide that we have been able to spend money on.
But the original statute allowed for that kind of flexibility.
It does, yeah, it has some flexibility, and it's really the president's fund. And so this is the first year I've been more involved because of the transition. And I've worked already with President Hensel to think about how we can look at the performance funding going forward, because it is an opportunity to leverage this towards the campuses in a way that can help us with some of the things you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, but traditionally over the last, 10 years?
Yeah.
Has it always been just about 22%?
I can get you the exact numbers, but it is generally fairly small, the amount that the students get, or not the students, the campuses, sorry.
Okay. I mean, I would just think after maybe 2 or 3 years, you would say, hey, you know what? It doesn't seem to be working. We're only getting 22% out, and we're keeping 5 million. And then it ends up being a slush fund to some extent for the system.
Yeah, and so one of the things I think we need to think about as we look at how we do those metrics for the performance is it's almost a, how do you put this? If you miss by, well, we do now give some for
Partial.
almost
Oh, yeah,
meet,
I saw partial.
but if you're missing by 2 students, then you don't get that performance funding. And so do we need to think of a more nuanced way? Because if you look over the time that we've had this performance-based funding model, our enrollments have increased, albeit with some campuses that have not seen as those increases, but our graduation and retention rates have also increased quite dramatically over that period of time. So even though the numbers themselves in any given year may not match what we ultimately anticipate, we are seeing that our graduation and retention rates are improving.
But what does that say about the different campuses that don't seem to achieve the metrics? I mean, is there follow-up to say, okay, what are we doing to improve it? How are you gonna?
Yeah,
what changes are you going to make? Because if it's going to be low in the 20s over the last 10 years, that's not a good sign.
And I think you're hitting on the theme. One of the themes that's come out of earlier questions is that campus versus system conversation. And this is one of those opportunities that we can have to make that conversation more directed towards these specific metrics. We did have that conversation when we recalibrated the metrics in 2023, but I think with a new president and some new ideas, we'll have another opportunity to do that.
But do you look at other state goals when the metrics are established? Like, for instance, DBED's reports on what they're trying to target as far as the industry, or Department of Labor.
Actually, that's a really interesting idea that we could build.
I mean, we're one state, and so trying to make sure that we all achieve the same goals should be.
Yeah, I like that idea. We'll have to look at that as we think through how to do performance.
All of those questions are exactly the right questions. I think we have to have a very tight connection between the strategic plan and pilots that look to see if it actually achieves something, and then scale and expand those pilots versus having sort of a scattershot approach to that money. So one of the things I've asked is that really we have this ready in the fall. So we changed the timing of it to give a longer trajectory for the for the recipients to establish movement, but to really use it for the strategic advancement of retention and graduation rates.
I mean, I almost feel like if we don't reach at least 50% allocation, then the money is not spent, should go back to the general fund instead of staying in the system, which would hopefully motivate you to get to the point where you want to keep it and you develop a better strategic plan so they can be distributed.
Isn't that the intent, was to incentivize the university to achieve these basic metrics that you folks came up with? And that if you didn't meet it, then you shouldn't keep it. I mean, it's like, we're rewarding you folks for not getting it, and system is saying, well, good, if the campuses don't get it, then we'll get the money. And it's really not done for the purpose. In fact, if we're leaving on the table $5 million, then why didn't you use this for, I don't know, you guys wanted promise. The board was, Regent Koshiki, you spoke very passionately about promise. Are you guys looking at other alternatives for it? This money is sitting there and used for what? I think the law says, or the statute said that the money would lapse if you didn't use it. But you folks use it before the year ends so that it doesn't lapse, right?
So originally, the original legislative intent on the performance funding was that UH would set metrics as targets for campuses. This has to be related to campuses earned performance funding via the metrics. But where it wasn't earned for distribution, that because the monies were appropriated to system, that system could deploy it for system-wide initiatives.
Where does it say that?
So that was the original intent when the former Ways and Means chair contemplated putting this into the budget. So what I'm saying is, university has always adhered to managing these funds with the original intent. So for the funds that have not been earned through performance, system looks for what to spend it on, but it's not like it's not spending it like system milestones. These are for initiatives that are supposed to be towards student success, university system wide. So it's not like specific programs.
Yeah, well, it's really hard to measure though, because we give you general fund monies anyway, and then you get these extra monies come in. And so then you can tell me, oh yeah, we used it on this one. How do I know it's not the other monies? So it's, it's like a pot of money there that we have no way of accounting for, other than to say that you're using it for the general success.
One of the things I would ask, I understand there may be some questions of how it's been used. What I can say is that what we're looking at it now is for very strategic objectives that create the systemness that we've been talking about. So to the extent that you were willing to indulge us with at least some additional time to demonstrate the strategic impact of that money, that is certainly the intent, is to deploy it for that elevation to the system of issues that are not being solved at the local level that relate to graduation and retention.
But I really believe some of this should be, I guess, somehow coordinated with P20's efforts too, because the way the original bill was written, it says here, in accordance with performance-based outcomes relating to student achievement and degree attainment and articulation as established by the president of UH. So but we haven't really got to that point where there's clear articulation, when the CTE is out of whack. We still don't have hub and spoke a lot. I don't really, even though we tried to incentivize it, I don't really see it happening as fast as it could. And then there's another section here that says the president of the university shall devise the metrics and standards for performance-based outcomes. So despite what the vice president said, it's really up to the president to determine these metrics and standards. And so that they can be changed at any time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really excited to have the opportunity to do that with the new ideas that are coming.
Well, hopefully we're going to be able to give the money out based on performance. And if you don't perform, then you shouldn't get the money. System shouldn't get the money. UH shouldn't get it at all. So I think that's what we need to amend the budget to say.
One thing I want to point out that Calbert just reminded me, it's a good portion of that money, for example, has been used to create that technology star system. That is it is that outreach program for, it's not EAB, but for student advisement, to identify when students are going and choosing the wrong course, to make that alert, to help identify the degree path. So it has been used for that system-wide strategy that elevates student success. That's a different question than you're asking, which is where's the accountability for the money that is being spent? And we certainly can track that and report on that and the specific movement of the metrics that are related to those initiatives. But I would ask you not to take that money. There's very little money in the budget that is
No,
allocated
it's in
for
your
strategy.
base. It's in your base.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's in the base, but then we don't get a report on it and it gets forgotten about. And so again, it's on performance. And if you're not performing, then, and you don't show us metrics that you have performed, then you shouldn't have earned the money. You didn't earn the money, right?
Any other questions? Yes.
On something else?
Yeah, something else.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's look at the vacancies.
Table.
Tables, 13? Table 11. So on some of these, and I've done this in the past. It doesn't went. Many of these fill dates, how are your fill dates determined? Because your fill dates are just from last year to the year before. You continue to give me fill dates and it never gets filled. So is it just to keep you from us sweeping the position? Because on on the fourth line, UH 100, you show a fill date. This has been vacant since 7/1/20. Fill date of 12/16/24. Has it been filled?
That's a Manoa, that is a Manoa position.
Yep. Research associate senior.
So these, Senator, these lists are a snapshot in time, as you know. So November 30th, of the vacancies listed.
Yes,
So-
I asked you the specific question on the
Yeah.
specific position. 12/16/24. Has this position been filled?
All I can tell you is that of the ones listed, 25 have received offers. I don't know if that specific position is one that received offers.
Okay, because last year's report, you said you were going to fill this position by 2/3/2024.
Yeah.
And it obviously didn't get filled. Now you're saying it was going to be filled on 12/16/24. And obviously this is January. And so I'm asking whether or not that position was filled.
Yeah.
Because you folks have consistently done this. And I have consistently gone back a year, 2 years to see the same position being said you're going to fill it by a certain date and you haven't.
Yeah, so,
But how can you fill this position when there's no money in the budgeted for it?
so that's an artifact of how Manoa Budget Office chooses to report these. The only money that they assign to a vacant position is a position that in the last fiscal year has been appropriated along with a position count. I've asked that question many, many times. Because the positions have not yet been filled, there is no salary to it and there's no allocation.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe you can explain, Calvert, how you pull back the vacancies and you hold it in a pot. And then when different, I guess, schools or colleges need.
I don't do that. So, but I can explain.
I thought you do that. Yeah, I thought you pull it.
No, each campus CFO does it.
The system doesn't do that process. But for the campuses and Manoa, yes. So when a position becomes vacant, either attrition or for whatever reason,
You pull it.
Manoa does have a practice.
Is it all campuses that do that?
You know, most campuses, I understand, even like within the community college.
Yeah, I know
system,
community colleges
have that approach where
Yeah.
where it may roll up.
Yeah.
So and then And then a campus like Manoa may decide to redeploy that position, and it might be redeployed
Yeah.
into a different
Yeah,
program.
because this was the same situation with the College of Education, right? When they have the vacancy, they
Right,
you
yeah.
pool it, and then when there's another school that might need it, then you deploy it
take-
there.
take it.
Yeah.
But you pulled their positions and they only gave them back like 4. They had to come in and ask us for 6 new positions because you wouldn't give them back that position. So to me, it's a game where you guys get to keep those positions and salaries, and then you get them to come back and ask for more new positions. Because I don't know, because how can you give me a date of last year, but there's no money in it? You're gonna fill.
No, when they pool it, you pull the money.
Yeah,
too.
when we, so each of these, when, before they go out for recruitment, they must be reviewed and approved, and they're approved by the
Yeah.
chief business
So you-
officer, and then the money gets
Your
placed. in.
vacancy savings gets pooled.
Right, exactly.
But I'm saying, do you have enough vacancy savings money to fill all these positions that you've
Yeah.
told me that you're gonna fill many by early this year?
Yeah, because
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
the original salaries of these gets pooled.
Yeah, exactly. So, the funds exist if, and again, this is a point in time.
Yeah.
While this recruitment is going on, another person leaves. And so more funds come in. So it's this ebb and flow of positions that are hired
When you
and
first
vacated.
established the position, there might have been a salary to it.
All right.
And then when it got vacant, they pulled it.
No, I understand, but to me, from what I understand is that you keep a number of these positions vacant because you've used the monies to pay for higher salaries. You've used the monies for other positions or savings to pay for
Well,
raises.
that might
And
help.
you actually do not have enough money to fill all of these vacancies.
So that is true.
What is true?
So what you just said,
Yeah.
if we,
Because they spend.
if we froze time and filled every single position on campus,
You're
we
short.
wouldn't have enough general funds to do that. But the reality is, at Manoa, 2 different things happen. People leave all the time. We have over 3,200 G-funded positions at Manoa. So at any
How
time,
much
people are
of this
leaving.
would you fill and pay for?
How many?
Yeah, so what, maybe half of this you actually have money for?
Yeah, right now, the latest as of a few days ago, almost 60% of these positions are in the final stages of hiring. In the meantime, even since November 30th, I can guarantee you
Retirements.
other people have left. So it's this coming and going that happens. The other thing that happens is, remember, these include faculty positions. When faculty get external grants, they pay themselves, or at least a part of their salary from the grant, and those G funds are brought back in centrally. So those G funds can be redeployed for another position. So that's the other thing that happens here.
According to us going through this, 211 of the vacancy positions are 3 to 5 years old. 3 to 5 years, 211 of them. And of the 211, 90 are over 5 years old. And these positions, you have said year after year, you had a fill date. And year after year, you have not filled it. So we usually sweep positions 3 to 5 years vacant. We
Yeah.
sweep it.
So my numbers are slightly different, but I agree with you. There's a subset. My numbers are around 25 that we're just calling
Well, these are
very old positions that have been, and the departments haven't yet filled them. So we are looking at those.
we took that from what you submitted.
Yeah, it's the tables that UH
Yeah,
filled
yeah.
out and sent
Submit
back
to
to
us.
us.
We don't.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about, we've gone, since we developed this table, we've gone to every single one of the units and asked them what's going on. And I'm basing my response on those responses. So I have a good answer on most of them, but not all of them. There are situations that we need to address.
What
where
do you
there's-
mean when it says, will not be utilizing N position count? And then you also had TBD, to be determined. So what does that mean when you, number of these positions you put will not be utilizing N positions? What does that mean? I've never seen that
That's,
before.
that's referencing the method of funding as
Right.
N, which is federal.
Federal funds.
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
does it mean when you say we'll be not using N?
Is that the CTAR positions?
Does that mean it's not going to exist? Does it mean you're going to do away with the position? There's no money?
No, that was, so that's, Manoa is the land grant institution for the university's system, and we receive funds from the Department of Agriculture. It was determined that those funds should not be used for the purpose they had been used for. So we are, and now I see the Dean of CTAR has left, but we are in the process of employing those positions for the purpose they were supposed to be used for.
Notice that there are no cancer center vacancies included. And whatever we got for budget positions for cancer center, all of the columns were left blank. So we had no way of knowing. And then there's a whole bunch of positions that says RCUH for cancer center. So I guess we're going to ask for a breakdown of those RCUH positions, costs, and how they relate to the overall budget.
Now there's on I don't know what page 35 on my list, 35 of the 367. There is one position,
Yeah.
cancer center, groundskeeper.
You're telling me that's the only vacant position?
I-
in the entire- Okay, we'll get that from them when we do the,
Yeah, I know you're
hearing.
gonna,
It's gonna take too
Yeah.
long for that. Okay. Go ahead.
No, I'm good. You have a question?
Any more on that? Can I move
Yeah.
along?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the scholarship report that came in. And I know this was brought up in the House hearing. So I guess the question is to the Board of Regents, since you folks are the ones that approve these. So according to this year's report that was submitted annually on your scholarships, Chair, the $62 million, $62.8 million went to 18,400 students in 2024 in form of statewide scholarships, which is excellent. And also additional $106 million board-approved non-resident tuitions differentials were waived for 8,574 non-resident students. And were you aware of that? I mean, you folks approved it, so you have to be aware of it, right?
I know there's scholarships for non-resident students, but I don't have the details.
You're not aware of the
Senator.
non-resident tuition differential?
Yeah, so that report, to be clear, so that is not, most of that is actually not monies given out by the university.
Right, it's waivers,
It's essentially foregone revenue. So, but it includes things like, it says scholarships for special talents.
Yes,
for
I can
instance.
read that. East
Yeah.
West Center, and stuff, US military.
That's,
Witchy.
yeah, so WUI or the Western Union Exchange, which,
Right.
so all of those, the numbers that show up on the report, it's not monies again given out by the university, it's foregone revenue. That's the value, the monetized, if you will, for these scholarships or the waivers.
So when
but
you
there's-
waive the tuition for a student, what is that considered?
So
Non-monetary?
yeah, so the big example that's on is the special talents, scholarships for special talents. That means not, well, it's a euphemism for athletic scholarships. And since athletics, a lot of athletes are not resident, they would be subject to the non-resident rate, but if they are on scholarship, they may be waived for, but that value, the monetized value will show up on this report.
Okay, but it's still a waiver, so you could give another student, a local student, a waiver that would fall under, right? I mean, whether it falls
In
under.
theory, yeah, you
In
could,
theory.
but understand that would result in if it shows up on that list, it's going to be foregone revenue, which means it would have been revenue that the university could have gotten, but has.
Well, simply for the scholarships, it's not necessarily revenue, but it's also taking out money. pure
It's
scholarship.
taking out the
Taking out money.
opportunity. Yes, right. That's why it's foregone.
And the waivers is taking away the opportunity for the university to receive tuition dollars, right? You're not going to receive any dollars.
Yes. So another, again, looking at the example, right, there's for non-resident native Hawaiian scholarships, right? So these are for
Right.
students that are not
Right, but you have Native Hawaiian students also below that for another $28 million with board-approved tuition exemptions.
Right.
Okay, so I guess my question is, of the $106 million that go to non-resident tuition waivers, if we took away 12 million of that 106 in waivers and gave that to other local students,
One of a few things I want to point out, and Vice President can also address these things, but my understanding is one of the main key places where these non-residents come in is through a cooperative, what's it called?
the
WAM-HRE.
Yeah.
In which case we actually have a net positive by bringing more students in than we funnel out.
But it's not 106 million. So I guess my question is, would $12 million or 12 million in tuition waivers derail this program?
It certainly would affect our ability to recruit athletes and other special talents. I mean, these are all people who are included in here.
East Center, you have spouses and dependents of university, their dependents, Hawaii Reserves, GI Bill, active duty, student exchange, Pacific Island. I mean, you have a whole bunch in there. So it wouldn't just be the scholarships for athletics,
But
right?
these are non-resident tuition differentials, so it's just waiving the difference between in-state and out-of-state tuition. So it's not. So for example, we just had to amend this policy because federal law requires us to extend in-state tuition to students. This is the last one, number 13 on the policy that you're referencing. Citizens of the Federated States of Micronesia, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Republic of Palau. So when we amended it, that means those students get in-state tuition effectively, but it doesn't mean that I'm not sure even what words I need, but
You're waiving the differential. I understand that.
Yeah,
I understand
so
that.
it's
It's still
not
income
money
that,
we have.
yeah, it's still be income that you would give and
Well, Senator, that's an assumption though. I think it's important to remember they may not come at all if it's an out-of-state price point, especially for our veterans that are currently stationed here for their spouses and whatnot. If we don't have competitive prices, we already are net exporters of many of these students and online programs. If we are not competitive with that price, they won't come at all. So I don't think it's, in other words, not a one-to-one
No,
where it's lost. That's assuming that they're still coming,
But we're
which
also a
may
lot
not be
lower.
true.
Our out-of-state tuition is a lot lower than many other institutions across the United States. And I'm just looking at, 62 million in scholarships. That's wonderful. But, as I listen to the Board of Regents talk about promise and how important it is, then I'm just wondering, with all of this money and all of this scholarships and all of these waivers, why aren't you looking at repurposing some of this money if promise is so important? Regents, I mean, why aren't you looking at other ways to bring in, to help our residents with their last dollar? If this is so important, why aren't you looking at other ways to do it than just asking us for 12 million?
It's also been explained, but we asked the question, but it's also been explained that a portion of Manoa's, you already do, but 10%, 27 million of.
I can provide this chart for you. It's actually quite illuminating that we actually give 27 million, almost $27.5 million in scholarship money to need-based and non-need-based programs. So the amount of investment skin in the game, if you will, that the university has in scholarship programs is substantial.
Yeah, 62 million in here that is also going, right? 62 million for awards for system-wide scholarships. So it's just a matter of how you divide this up or where you put the emphasis on. And I'm just saying is the emphasis is on the promise if that's where the emphasis in, then why aren't we looking at reprogramming or rerouting some of this to address it if it's so important that the way you folks talked about it in the board meetings? Regents, no,
No,
it's
I-
a region question. It's a region question,
Yeah.
because it's your budget, it's not her
Yeah.
budget. So,
Well, we've also talked about, I think, or we've talked about the, just the transfer students. Yeah, yeah. So if you do a pilot program.
well, that's something we've talked about, and again, you folks have said, no, we want the whole ball of wax. And I listened to that,
Yeah.
minutes, and I saw you guys vote, and I know 2 regions brought that up, but the other ones all said, no, we need to ask for the full amount. You know, we need to ask for the full amount. But I'm just saying, if you're not working with us and you're not looking at other ways in which UH is putting out their scholarship dollars, and you're not putting it into those that you think is important, then why isn't that discussion happening?
Well, the discussion did happen. I mean, it didn't vote that way, but there,
You didn't even talk about these scholarships at your meeting. You folks didn't even know. I would say you didn't know about it, but I'm not sure many of your regions are aware that you folks approved this amount of level of scholarships and waivers. Right? I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of money in scholarships and waivers. And that's the credit of the university. I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying, how do we look at it and put it into the areas that we need? Like, if we have shortage of teachers, and we want to give more to teachers, we have shortage of mental health. Like, do we want to put more of our emphasis on that? I mean, those are the things that we have to be able to look at to help our workforce.
If I can just ask, I know part of the rationale for Promise program is to get people 4-year degrees.
yes.
So why not try to ask the community colleges if they could be strategic on which campuses could have certain 4-year degree programs on their campuses? Maui already has, I think, 2 or 3, but that might be a cheaper, easier, faster way than just doing what you guys are talking about. And it's really going to help the people who really need it. I mean, those are at the community college are there because they really need the help.
Just real quick. It creates some accreditation issues. It is complex to add 4-year degrees to a community college. Those are different accreditation systems. We are an access institution, so anything that broadens access, I think, is what the regions were focused on. But certainly we have been talking about different ways to really maximize that for lower amounts of money. And I think you're exactly right. It's the 3rd and 4th years of these degrees that might be the highest punch for this kind of money. So if that is where this committee is interested, we've already expressed an interest with the regions in looking at what that would look like.
Yeah, I think we've discussed in the past. I know Leeward has an education program for new teachers or for teachers. I mean, that one program probably could be a 4-year degree program. Like I mentioned, it's not that you don't do it already. Maui has a couple of bachelor's degrees. So there's precedent for it. It'd be one thing if there wasn't any, but you already do it.
It would raise issues of staffing. I just want to put that out there. In other words, if you're taking programs that exist one place with current staffing and you move them to a 2-year college, then we will need and have to come back for additional staffing to develop those programs.
But having that conversation with the chancellor saying, would you be willing? Are you interested in expanding your program to a 4-year degree? And I'm just going to use the education program at Leeward as an example. So before you start to already say, oh, I don't think we can, or we have staff, find out from the chancellor if they're willing. And if they think they can do it within the current staff, why make those assumptions?
Of course, you're correct in the sense that those conversations should always take place first. And I don't mean to suggest that they shouldn't. The more collaborative we can be as a system, the more effective we'll be as a system. As a general rule, duplicating programs in multiple places. It is expensive.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, that's all I meant.
But we did fund an education program at Leeward specifically. So that was something that the legislature invested in.
And can I just say this semester, we're working with Leeward and Manoa to have the 3+1 and 2+2 seamlessly coordinated, and we are ultimately going towards a campus or system-wide articulation process for all campuses in the space of education. So we're working on that pretty diligently this semester in the context of, so hopefully we can solve some.
Hopefully, I've heard that before.
I know.
And like I showed you, the papers were from 2021.
I just want to make another point on the promise. I know that I've heard statements from the administration saying, well, promise is a state program, so the money should come from the state. You're a state university. We put promise together because you folks weren't doing it. So if there's a vacuum, then we'll come up with it. But just because we have it there doesn't mean, oh, you're not going to do it because it's a state program. So I hope you folks keep that in mind, because that's not an excuse why you shouldn't be looking at serving that population that is so important. With the monies that you have there.
I just want to say, I do think it's really important because I think we should be really proud of this, that more than $27 million is going for these types of scholarships. So it isn't a zero from the skin in the game from the university. It's up to 20% of the return of tuition dollars we're investing in students to bring them in.
I'm not saying that. I'm
yeah.
saying that if you want 12 million for promise, then you need to look at how you're going to do it, because we have invested and put it into the community colleges.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
So,
But isn't the promise program in statute for only the community colleges?
yes.
So that's,
Correct.
I'm not sure why you keep asking for the four-year campuses when that's not even in statute.
Yep, they keep asking for that.
Chair, the previous asks have married a Hawaii Promise bill along with the budget ask. So the establishment in statute, like it is established for the community colleges, but the allowance for Hawaii Promise to be expanded or applied to for the 4 years.
Okay, I don't read that, but because it specifically says Hawaii Community College Promise Program established.
So
they put bill is what he's saying.
there was a bill
They put it-
to establish the program in statute, and that's in statute, coincide to appropriation in the budget. So in the university's ask and the executive branch's asks previously, not this year, previously, the asks for Hawaii Promise also included admin bill requests for Hawaii Promise program.
Yes, which died
Well,
several times.
Both have never made it through, obviously, right?
that
So,
says something.
yeah, right.
Well, the community college one did. I mean,
Yeah.
that's in law.
So all I'm saying is the reason why there's no Hawaii Promise at the 4 years
Because
is
we didn't
because the
pass the
approach
measures.
was to make it like the community college, which is established by statute and appropriated by statute. Yeah, that's all. So
Yeah.
But you don't need a statute to do it.
But after several years, if the legislature doesn't just says, oh no, we're going to stick with the community college one and we're not going to pass in the statute, why not just catch the hint and move on and figure out other ways we can do it? Like establishing the 4-year degrees at community colleges. Why keep hitting your head against the wall? You enjoy pain so much. I don't know why.
Seeing you every year. And I love talking to you about this.
Yes. But you have so many priorities. Why are you going to put that there?
And to again reiterate clearly, in lieu of a Hawaii Promise program, all of the campuses, Manoa, even the community college system, is redeploying tuition specifically into scholarships that, while they may not be Hawaii Promise, they are serving the same purpose.
Right, and that's what we want
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
that is here, the university, state, via the
You don't need
university.
promise.
That is what's happening. Some of it is showing up on that list, we talked about earlier, but in terms of scholarships that either go need-based or merit, coming out of university.
And it should.
In lieu of,
Right.
it's not Hawaii Promise.
No, but it should, whether it's the word is promise or it's scholarships or need, that's the same thing, right? It's just a different
Serving
word.
the same.
Yeah.
And-
Okay.
oh,
So is there a timeline when you look at these vacant positions and say that maybe you don't need them? There's one that's been here vacant for 30 years.
What page is that?
It's page 38. It's the
vacancy.
fifth one down.
38. she
It's a
said.
junior specialist. It was vacant 930.95. The fifth one from the top.
See the junior special.
Yeah.
10 is.
God.
This is at,
10.
Where?
10. Hilo, that's Hilo.
so this is a method of funding B, so this is not general funds, this is B fund, but it is permanent, so meaning it is in the budget as special funding.
But isn't Hilo? Who not supposed to have specialists? Only Manoa is supposed to have specialists, right? According to the region's policy.
Right, I mean.
So then how come we have specialists? I have vacant position specialists at West Oahu. And now I'm seeing this one at Hilo. We're not supposed to have specialists according to the policy.
Maybe that's one reason it's been vacant since 9/11.
Well, there's another specialist.
Sorry, good afternoon. Clay Raposa, Vice Chancellor for Administrative Affairs at UH Hilo. Yeah, that position is a special funded position. It's been on the books since 1995. And we really don't have any intent to fill
But
it.
you're not supposed to have specialists.
Yeah, but he just said they don't intend to fill
Yeah.
it. So he's okay if you
Yeah.
cut it.
Historically, we've had specialists.
Maybe they should
We've
go for the
recognized the
waivers.
need for the change. There was a moratorium on filling specialists. The system has gone through the reclassification, so we're not going to be hiring specialists anymore.
Well, they would, I don't know about a moratorium, but according to the region's policy, only Manoa had specialists. And so even those positions at West Oahu is really not allowed. And so if it's vacant, then we're gonna sweep it because, yeah, as those positions come up, they weren't allowed. This supposed to be ATPs, right? That was the whole issue.
There's still a net gain if you if the other ones were asked for and that's the only loss. Still a net gain.
Yeah, they weren't gonna fill it anyway.
Because you have other positions in there from the additions.
Sorry, is that a question?
No, I'm telling you that don't feel so bad. It's still a net gain.
I'll get over it.
Okay, we talk about contracts.
But
Table 14. Our general counsel's favorite topic on contracts. Before I get to you, Carrie. So, security guards. You're asking for $452,000, 1,500,000 at Manoa, 71,000 at Windward, 1.2 at Hawai'i. Is that can't even read my writing. And 400,000 at KCC. Or Hawaii, this page table 14. So
14.
I guess Jan, security comes under you, right? Right? Okay, well, Manoa is asking for 1.5 million for security. Don't you folks have a full security?
Wait, what table?
We do have a security team, but our vacancy rate, offhand, I'd say it's probably close to 40%. We're unable to fill all of our vacancies.
Why is that?
It's a combination of, we just have a rotating door there for our.
Okay, remember we talked about this and the training that you folks ask these people to go through is like, you use an ex-policeman and they do all this physical stuff. I should have brought the book with me. I have my staff bring it. I have in office the book that you folks use to train. These people get hurt. And I know for a fact that has happened. And so you can't keep these security guards at $24 an hour. I mean, it's a salary, but it breaks down to about $24 an hour. You ask them to do these stuff, and yet now you go out and you have all these security contracts for a total of $2.6 million in security contracts when you have security guards at every community college. At every college.
Well, I think everybody has vacancies. I don't think anybody has spare security personnel to share with other campuses.
Yeah, but as I talk to the campuses about what they need to do, they're not looking at the program and how they're trying to recruit these people. They're really big problems at HCC on being able to keep these people on because there's a problem there. And then there's thoughts about
pay is
the,
definitely part of the problem.
Yeah.
well, pay is part of the problem, but asking them to go for restraining orders and asking them to retain the people, right, Senator Favela? We've been down that road, and it's very troubling to see all that money and then to see all these contracts that is being, and I'm not saying you don't need it, but I think you got to look at the program. And I've had this discussion with you, right? So what have been done other than just saying that you have vacancies?
Well, again, I think for the needs of Manoa, which deal with large public events, we have sporting events,
Graduations.
we have graduations. These events need to be covered. And so
So what
that's
happens when
probably
you don't
where-
have enough people? You put on a uniform and you direct traffic?
Yes, I do.
I know, I've seen you.
That's your money and I tell you where to park. Yes. I mean, so I, as far as the community colleges, I think their needs are slightly different and may warrant a different training program.
But I think it really needs to be looked at because it's a lawsuit waiting.
Jen, you got to figure out something. You can't be the one directing traffic over there.
Well, security shouldn't come under you. Should security come?
Calvin said he was going to go.
I
And
know, we have a volunteer. We have one volunteer. Yeah,
You should have.
but we can resort. I mean, that kind of,
I'd love to transfer this to.
but seriously, you guys got to figure it. I mean, this has an incentive program. What DOE is going to try to do is, if you, as a security guards get training, they get a pay bump.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way they're keeping it, because if not, they're losing security guards too.
But nobody is monitoring this training. I told Jen she should go into and take the training herself. You know, I really, like, I challenge you to go in and see if you can do that training because it's.
We would do it, but
I know you.
no, we would do it, but UH won't hire any of us. But we would do it.
Desire to be in the career.
Senator Favela, I think.
The question that I have is that when we're hiring these security companies and these contract, they don't go through the training that you guys put your guys' security guards through. So what I don't understand is instead of having it a blanket across the board, because they're security guards and they're not necessarily to enforce law. They're there to see, report, right? You know what I mean? They're not necessarily 100% supposed to be handcuffing and putting people, yeah. But that's the training. This is what I'm trying to explain. This is the training. Why? Okay, reason why we get student vacancies across the board, everybody getting hard time getting security. But you know why they can fill vacancies at the airport for people doing the attendant and in there? Because they don't have the knockdown tackle bust up guy for takeoff, because now they're not going to be able to go through that. So why are we training these guys to do law enforcement work when they're supposed to be observing and report? That's their job. If they have to do a little bit more, then they need to get more training. But to have a training that you're deterring people, able-bodied people like you, right? You over there doing the job, because that's deterring people to come because of that training. So I can understand the pay, but let's put it this way. So when you contract it out as a security company, and whatever the security company is telling you, when they put in a bid for the company, let's say they put in one bid, say they pay the security guards $23 an hour, French benefits with vacation and sick leave. How much do those companies actually do that? They don't. They give you guys a bid of $30-something. They pay the guy $15, $16, and they make the rest. But that is fraud. If I put in one bid for one contract saying I'm going to pay you these French benefits, and we don't, which is happening at the airport, even though the union is doing that there, then that's fraud to the state. We shouldn't be paying one company that's only letting you work 4 hours, so I don't need to give you 40 hours. I don't need to give you that. And that's why they come back to the state and say, oh, well, they're only part-time, but they put in a bid for $34, $42 an hour. And then we paying them, like she's saying, private security. Imagine if we invest in our own security on campus. Because I'll tell you one time, because I applied a long time ago, so that you know, on NOAA, they have an intensive police training visible, not physical. They show you what stuff, okay, how much line is on this paper? Put them back. How about what color the girls' clothes or the boys' clothes, right? That's the training they had. I didn't pass, but it wasn't physical that I had to physically detain somebody. That's not their job. It was about observing, seeing what kind of glasses you wear in your clothes, and then flash them so that you can go and give the authorities the description of the assailant. It shouldn't be that kind of training. And I think you guys should revamp that, really look into that. And I think you guys can retain because you guys had a great, I don't say you guys don't. You guys have a good program at University of Hawaii because I went through the whole thing and everything. And of course I didn't get selected, but good thing I never asked, I wouldn't be here. But what I'm saying is why have the physical aspect one-on-one? And you know that because some of them got hurt in the tackling and the hitting in the leg with the baton, all that kind of stuff. That's not part of their purview of job. So I don't know who's doing the outline for you guys' security, but I think you guys should change them so that we don't have to pay contracting companies that kind of money. And maybe special events, you would order them or hire them. That is fine. But we have more than enough capable people that want good state paying jobs and is able to be able to work the job if you guys just change the way you're training them. That's the issue.
Can I
Sorry,
interject?
go ahead.
So what he's saying that, the companies are saying they're gonna pay the security guards $34 or $38.
Yeah, I don't know it offhand.
Well, but in actuality, they only get $23, $20 or $20 because you're paying for the extra monies.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's the
we
contract.
would love to not have to contract this out.
So
to be
if
clear.
you're willing to pay the security companies $34 for a security guard, then why aren't we hiring them and paying them $30 or something like that? So that's.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
100%.
but we don't. And then
we have
and then we make them go through training that these security guards that you're hiring and paying $34 don't even go through that security. So it doesn't make
Maybe
sense.
just a bill for minimum pay,
Well,
and then we can go on.
But
yes, I will acknowledge that pay is an issue that we have been working with DHRD on. There's really nothing we can do about that.
We need a plan and an evaluation.
And as far as the training, we will look
Because
into
I
it.
talked to you about this.
I'll
over a
have
year ago.
this is not my area of expertise, first of all.
You know when you revamp this, let me do like they call it a shadow. Let me go shadow this training and who the people giving the training.
Yes.
Because I would really like to do.
Yes.
Really would like to see that.
I would.
And then I would question why.
Okay,
Yes, I will have our chief.
you guys will work it out later.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Carrie, I don't want you to feel left out.
She doesn't.
Harry Okinaga, Vice President, Legal.
Carrie, I know we've gone over this and in the past you've given me a separate sheet, but I've gone through each one and put all the legal concerns. The concerns I have, and it's the same concerns, is that there are many of these contracts that have small dollar amount that's 7, 8, 9 years old, and it hasn't been closed. One I think was $65. One is $604. It's been open since 2016.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what's
Maybe if
carrying.
you
One
can-
is $70.35. Has been open since 2017. And you told me the last time you guys were
page?
cleaning up
Oh,
these.
you know.
This is table 14, page 83. So why are these contracts still languishing? $70.35 since 2017.
Costs us more to Xerox the pages.
Yeah, this is until matters are resolved.
Yeah, so
No.
that's, I'm sorry. So you're looking at a patent contract. So we've always talked about those as, cost of doing business. They stay open as long as the patent dispute is ongoing, and that's a research faculty.
Okay, well, how about the one on the next page for $69.39? This is not a patent.
Page
Window
80.
glazing matters at the.
Yeah,
at the
that's,
Cancer Center.
no, that is a construction. If you're looking at that Tsugawa contract, that is and it'll
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but
increase.
it's been
I'm
open
sorry.
since 2018. It's only $69.39.
No, that's the,
Standing balance.
I think that's the balance of what's left in our authorized spend. So in other words, we spent, yeah, and the original contract was
$400,000.
authorized for
Oh, yeah,
400,000. We spent 399. Yeah, that's an expensive construction litigation.
But it's not
case.
done yet, but
No,
what can you do with $69.30?
right. So we're gonna have to authorize an amendment to
Additional
that
amount.
contract to increase, how much the firm can spend.
Yeah.
And that one, we're plaintiff. That one, we're seeking relief from the contractors for faulty
So
windows.
let me just say this for the
Yes.
future. A lot of times when you folks give us descriptions and purpose or why, it's like on the trips. I'm not gonna go into that today, but on the trips, you don't even tell us where. Of the West Oahu trips, all of these trips that go on, you guys don't even tell us where. You just say, oh, conference. But there's no justification, so that's why we're gonna bring it up. But if you guys give us the justification, if you tell us what it is, you give us the information, then we don't have to question you and go to 4 hours of hearing. But you choose to leave out information, you choose not to give us all the information that is asked for, you leave those columns blank, then we're gonna have to ask.
Senator, I will promise you,
And it's
if you
not
want
just
me to
you.
come, if you want me to come in advance to
Oh,
not
no.
have to call me up, I'm happy to come in.
Oh,
in
the
advance.
public
Okay.
wants to know.
Yes.
I want to know, but I represent the public. I represent the people in the district.
Yes, I
And they
understand.
look at stuff and they don't understand.
I
So
understand.
that's why we go through this whole
I
process.
understand, and I'm happy to explain. I will happily tell you that partly due in no small part to your annual request. We monitor outside council contracts very carefully, very, very carefully. And
So I'm just-
only open them when we absolutely have to, because we know it's gonna show up on this list and we're gonna face questions.
Folks
Yes.
Go through this budget process.
Yes.
And if you give us the information.
Yes.
You won't have to sit to us. Again, I'm looking at the Chancellor Hilo and I don't know, there's 2 pages of 69 travels in there. And it's basically the date, meeting, other, and the amount, period. You don't give us the rest of the information. Where? Amsterdam, New York, Big Island? We don't know. But if you give us the information, then we have a better understanding.
Do you guys have something like that? That they have to fill out when before they leave requests, to whoever the person's,
We have all the information.
yeah, they give them, so
Just
you
don't-
guys have it then? Okay. Thank you.
Oh. Okay, any other questions?
I will be holding on Thursday, follow-up hearing.
On travel or.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Adjourn.
Thank you.